Hi, I'm Luke. This is Fly with AI. I make tools to help you learn how to fly. You're in the right place if you want to deep dive study the PSTAR, the first test you have to do in order to solo in an aircraft in Canada. I'd like to kind of make this video long form. I want to study in a cozy atmosphere the way I like to study. And this is really about training techniques, learning techniques, and how the website I built can help you study really super effectively. So let's jump into it. I incorporated 5 learning techniques into the website. On our website, I've made tests for the PSTAR, PPL, Canada, and PPL FAA. And they all bake in these 5 major techniques that I use to study. It's been a decade I've been in aviation as a student pilot, for a private license, as a commercial pilot, as an instructor, as an instrument rated pilot, as an aerospace engineer in university. I've kind of boiled down into 5 test taking tips. This isn't necessarily learning tips. Learning comes, from more rigorous application, but test taking, and in aviation, there's a lot of test taking. So you got to be good. Got to be good at test taking. So let's just get good at them. I'll give you my tips. Works really well. Number 1, when you study, begin by trying. Do not begin by studying huge amounts of content and then being ready to start taking tests. Okay, aviation is a huge beast. You can't think that you're going to master the material, period. I don't have the material mastered. The best instructor you know doesn't have the material mastered. The material is very complicated. And it's not about mastery, it's just about getting to a level where you can figure out where you find solutions to questions, where you find rules, where you find how things work, how you dig down into it. So the only way you don't know that, the only way you figure out where your blind spots are start taking practice questions. So begin by taking practice questions. That's how our tests work on the website. I have questions there, you try to answer, and when you don't get them right, we can dive deeper. Begin by taking practice questions, trying them, and then digging deep when you don't know the answer. That's why you'll see on every single one of my questions, it'll give you the reference, and Bernoulli, the AI that I make that can fly the simulator with you, Bernoulli will speak to the question with you. So answering more details about the question and why you may have gotten it wrong. That's number 1. Number 2, pen and paper in hand. I just like to study with a pen and paper. It keeps my mind active. There's really no big philosophy here, just that pen and paper in hand. You get a piece of paper and a pen when you take these tests IRL, and there's no reason not to study using a pen and paper as well. It helps graphically too. Number 3, this is probably a big one too. Reading the damn question. Read the damn question. These questions have been rewritten over decades to keep them fresh, but they have to, in essence, say the same thing. So they've been rewritten. I don't know if by lawyers or just by interns. Same result, basically, is just answers and questions that really don't make linguistic sense. They don't have classical prose. They're weird. So we have to read them. We have to really read them. Number 4 is choosing the safest option of the ones presented. This answer is kind of, we'll see applications of it. I'll go through and show you examples of when the safest option is the best option. But anyways, and number 5 is don't second guess. On my tests, I don't allow you to second guess. Once you click an answer, it locks it in, and Bernoulli just tells you if you're right or wrong. On real tests, the exam doesn't really submit until you submit it. It's a digital test. It's on a computer. You go into the authority's test taking facility, and you're going to do it on a computer. And when you submit it, all the answers will be graded at once. So it's possible to go in and re-evaluate your own answers before you submit. No. Forbidden. Illegal action. You must read the question carefully, answer the question, and move on. Deal. That's my fifth option, my 5th tip that you must obey. Okay, let's dive into it. I'll begin with the PSTAR. You're in the right place. Grab yourself a cup of warm liquid. Be calm. Grab a pen, and let's do these answers together. I've got nowhere else to be. This is going to be a long video, and I'll do one for the PPL and the IFR, Canadian IFR Group 3, and then I'll also do one for the FAA PPL and then the FAA Commercial. So we have the first section is collision avoidance. These are going to be questions about what we do to avoid aircraft. You'll notice about all of these sections, they all kind of relate to a new pilot being in the air and what they have to know how to do in order to be safe. That's one tip, is going to be that the answers to these questions are typically what is the safest to do. So we do have to think of it in the mindset of safety, not necessarily following some kind of systematic logic, but what is the safest answer. So number one is collision avoidance. Number two is visual signals. Visual signals are going to be things like flags, signs, lights at the airport, lights that may indicate to a pilot something about safety, flags that may indicate wind or safety, and then other things that might be drawn on the runway like X's or taxiways or runways. Number three is going to be communications. Communications, talking about radio communications. Number four is aerodromes. So the aerodrome, what is that even? What's the difference between an aerodrome and an airport and those definitions? Equipment is number five. Equipment here refers to the aircraft equipment. What do we need in order to fly in the day? What do we need in order to fly at night? That's how we're going to kind of approach equipment. Pilot responsibilities is number six. What is a pilot responsible for? Everything. We'll see that the answer to all of these questions is, yeah, the pilot is responsible. Number seven is wake turbulence. Okay, understanding wake turbulence. They included this in the PSTAR because it is possible that in your first solo or in your first few flights as a student, you may be sharing an airport with a large aircraft. And one danger that is associated to being at the airport with large aircraft is wake turbulence. We'll explore what that means. Aeromedical. Aeromedical is section 8. They want a student pilot to understand the limitations and the affordances of a medical in aviation. When you have an aeromedical, what privileges does that get you? When does it expire? Those are most of the questions are going to be focused on the expiry of your medical and how it affects your license. So we'll see questions like that. Number 9, flight plans and itineraries. What is a flight plan? What is an itinerary? What's the difference? When do we need them? The questions are going to focus on the safety of that. Number 10, clearances and instructions. Clearances and instructions, again, safety, talking to air traffic control, talking to the tower at the airport. That's number 10. This is particularly challenging if you've never been to a towered airport. It's possible to be at this stage in your training where you're pre-solo and you haven't actually been to a controlled airport yet. Very typical. So this section might actually not have a mind space for you at this time, but we'll try and create it. Aircraft operations. It's going to be like safety relating to general aircraft operation, like starting an engine and operating it safely on the ground. Regulations in general airspace. More regulation questions. Number 13 is controlled airspace. So the difference between uncontrolled and controlled airspace in Canada. And number 14 is aviation occurrences. The definition of an aviation occurrence. It's going to talk about when do we have to tell somebody that something has happened. If you have a flat tire, does that constitute some kind of aviation event that we have to tell a regulator about? That versus a off-runway excursion. You've actually accidentally driven off the runway, and the differences between those. So those are the 14 sections. Okay, so on the PSTAR exam on the Fly with the Eye website, we have all the questions for the PSTAR listed out. When we get them correct, they go green. When we get them wrong, they go red. You see, I've been studying for a while, so I've mastered them all. It tells us the question number. So the first number in the question is the section. So this is from section 1, and this is the first question in section 1. And I've listed here the actual section name. So collision avoidance, like we said. A few notes. When we click next question, it's going to randomly, it's actually not random. I've created an algorithm that goes from your least visited questions and then your most gotten wrong questions. So when I click next question, it is quote unquote random, but it's to kind of effortlessly study, because what I know is that when we study, it is hard to choose which questions to study, essentially. What do we know? What do we not know? And so I've added an algorithm that does what I do, which is focusing on questions that we haven't done well in the past and revisiting. So when I do questions out of a textbook, I do like to kind of go top to bottom and just start doing them. When I don't know one, I have to like kind of dive down into it and understand it. And then later returning to it and kind of trying to do it as fast as possible to figure out if we've actually mastered that thing. So if I click next question, what I'll get is a question that maybe feels random, but I've just gotten this question wrong in the past, probably to some amount more than other questions, and so the algorithm's re-showing it to me. To bypass that together, we're just going to click the question number here in the menu. So we'll just go 101 to 102 to 103 and so on, and we'll just go through one section at a time. So the first section is collision avoidance, and let's just kind of look at this. Okay, so I've given you two tips. I've given you that we are just going to start with the questions and study as needed. I've given you that I'm going to write things down to keep myself busy so that my ADHD doesn't blast off into something unhelpful. And the number 3 thing is that we're going to read the question. It is like so crazy how often I see people get a question wrong because they haven't read the question, not because they didn't have comprehension of the question, but because they didn't read it. And like I said, these questions have been rewritten so many times that they are starting to be goofy. They're just goofy questions. They've been rewritten from possibly normal sounding at one time to continuing. I mean, honestly, I think that's basically the only updates these questions get, is some sort of rewriting. So sometimes they do just come across goofy. They're not written in a language that is meant to be understood. They don't have classical prose. So the first question about collision avoidance, it says, which statement is true with regard to aircraft converging at approximately the same altitude? Okay, so we're looking for a true answer. And when the question is written this way, which statement is true, it does actually mean that all the other statements are false. And sometimes the falseness is pretty vague, but it does mean that all the other ones are false because they are either too vague to be actually accurate, or they're just downright false. And we can debate those things. We may debate them because I may get one wrong, and then we'll debate. I'll probably try and defend myself a little bit. Okay, so regard to aircraft converging at approximately the same altitude. In the PSTAR, you're always going to get 4 answers to choose from, and you'll have to choose one out of the 4. One option is a jetliner has the right of way over all other aircraft. An aircraft towing objects has the right of way over all power-driven, heavier-than-air aircraft. An airplane has the right of way over all other aircrafts which are converging from the left. And airplanes towing gliders must give way to helicopters. Okay, so they're combining a couple of different ideas here. There's a hierarchy, and some aircrafts have to give way to other aircraft. It's the same actually in boating and in nautical rules. And as far as this rule goes, it's all about maneuverability. It's which aircraft is which thing is more maneuverable than other things. So the way I like to remember this is balloons. Okay, balloons are a type of airship, and balloons are a type of aircraft that have no maneuverability. They're by the wind. And so if you're going to make a collision course with a balloon, it's on the fixed wing, heavier than air aircraft to do some sort of maneuvering, because the balloon cannot maneuver. So if we ever see a balloon, we're going to know that balloon always has the right of way because they have no way of getting out of the way, if that makes sense. So let's see. What about maneuverability? A jetliner has the right of way over all other aircraft. Not true. It doesn't really, there's really no rule that applies here. This is just a misnomer, like a misnomer. A jet airliner has the right of way over all other aircraft. Not true. An aircraft towing objects has the right of way over all power-driven heavier-than-air aircraft. Okay, this kind of makes sense to the rule I said, because towing objects, you don't have that much maneuverability. You can't do anything because you are towing something and it has to be flying. An airplane has the right of way over all other aircraft which are converging from the left. This is interesting because it's going to relate to a different rule. Airplanes towing gliders must give way to helicopters. Well, helicopters have just as good maneuverability, so we don't give way to helicopters. So I think it's number 2, that the towing aircraft has the right of way. Okay, so we've seen a correct answer for the first time. It goes green, meaning correct. And now we do have this here. This is the reference. I've added this. This is in a reference guide. You could find this other ways, but I've on this exam, I've neatly just put it here at the bottom. And we can go into the CARS 602.19 to find the right of way. However, just to make it a little bit easier, Bernoulli, the AI, on Fly with AI, he knows this reference and is willing to go get that for us and kind of explain it to us. So the aircraft towing objects has the right of way over all power-driven heavier-than-air aircraft. So CARS 602.19, and we'll go look at it for some future questions. This is directly what it says. A power-driven aircraft shall give way to aircraft that are seen to be towing gliders or other objects or carrying a slung load. Slung load is if something's underneath the aircraft, possibly held by a line. This makes sense. Also, a helicopter could have a sling load. This makes sense because the towed object, like a glider or banner, obviously has limited maneuverability, so other aircraft must yield. It speaks to maneuverability. So we could write here and talk to Bernoulli, but we'll just keep moving along. Okay, so number 1. So sling load, and I'm going to just write the word maneuverability here. And I'm going to circle this question and say maneuverability. Cool. Okay, next I'm going to click this one here. Okay, 102. When 2 aircraft are converging at approximately the same altitude. Seems like the same question. We're going to see this a lot in this section. When 2 aircraft are converging at approximately the same altitude, both aircraft shall alter their heading to the left. The aircraft on the right shall avoid the other by descending. The aircraft that has the other aircraft on its right shall give way. The aircraft that has the other on its left shall give way. Yeesh. Okay. The left and right thing can be confusing. The aircraft on the right will always have the right of way. That is the main rule here. We'll see the cars in a second, but the aircraft on the right has the right of way. These aircrafts are converging at approximately the same altitude. They don't really say like converging from the same side or from head on to each other, but it's kind of implied in the types of questions and the types of answers. This is, to me, a type of misleading questions. I'm just going to draw a doodle of it here. In this case, both aircraft are converging in this situation, both aircraft are converging like this, right? And one is on the left and one is on the right. And you can imagine yourself being in one of these aircraft and it's clear that one of you is on the left and one of you is on the right. That's what this type of situation is kind of explaining. Okay, so both aircraft are altered that they're heading to the left. You'll notice that the right answer always just has the words right in it. Don't let them double confuse you. We're always going to alter heading to the right, and the person on the right is always in the right. The person on the right is always has the right of way, is always in the right. So we're always using the word right in this case, and that's how I remember these. So both aircraft altering their heading to the left, no, the word left is in there. The aircraft on the right shall avoid the other by descending. Well, no, because the one on the right has the right of way, so you wouldn't do that. The aircraft that has the other on its right shall give way. This is the correct answer, I believe, because it's saying that the one on the right has the right of way and the one that has the one on the right shall give way. Oh my gosh, confusing. But if I kind of look at my diagram, the aircraft that has the other on the right, which is the one on the left, shall give way. And you'll notice that the right answer of these ones always has the word right in it. So I'll click this one here. Whew, okay, I had a lot riding on that. Okay, so this is CARS 60219, right of way. It's actually the same reference as the last one, if we recall. Bernoulli is just kind of grabbing this reference, can look at it. Let's look at it together. Okay, here's how the CARS is how the CAR rule is written. The CARS also stands for Canadian Aviation Regulations. When two aircraft are converging at approximately the same altitude, the pilot in command of the aircraft that has the other on his right shall give way. So it's exactly written as this. This means if you see another plane on your right while converging, you must give way to them. It's a fundamental rule to avoid collision and confusion. Bernoulli, let's see if he says the same thing as me. This rule can be tricky to visualize at first, but you showed a solid understanding. Yeah, right-hand rule, perhaps. Okay, so let's keep going. So 103. When two aircraft are converging at approximately the same altitude, which statement applies? Okay, so just again, repackaging of this thing. Gliders shall give way to helicopters. Airplanes shall give way to power-driven heavier-than-air aircraft. Well, let's talk about that one in a second. Gliders shall give way to airplanes. Power-driven heavier-than-air shall give way to gliders. Okay. The hierarchy that we might see is like balloons, gliders, powered, and I guess in between these two is towed. Okay, that's like the hierarchy. They're gonna try and confuse us with saying things like aeroplanes, power-driven heavier-than-air aircraft, and helicopters. What's really the difference between these things? Airplanes and power-driven heavier-than-air aircraft, synonyms. Although one is pretty much a mouthful and you know, it sounds like it's from antiquity. It sounds very old, but they are synonyms, these two things. So this one is intentionally confusing and not doesn't say anything. Gliders shall give way to helicopters. No, right? Because gliders don't have an engine. They may be less maneuverable. They might not be able to climb at will. So gliders giving way to helicopters doesn't make sense. Helicopters are super maneuverable. This one doesn't make any sense. Gliders shall give way to airplanes. The same as this one, basically doesn't make sense. And also, right, this and this and this, these are all synonyms. So these are all incorrect in the same way. Power-driven heavier-than-air shall give way to gliders. Yes, that makes sense, because if we have an engine we can climb at will, we might be able to, you know, take more avoiding action than gliders. So gliders do actually have right-of-way. And okay, there we go. And I look at this, it's actually the same CARS. It's the same one as we've already seen before. Let's just keep going. When two aircraft are converging at approximately the same altitude, which statement applies? Okay, it's the same question. And repackaged slightly differently. Gliders shall give way to helicopters. That doesn't make sense, right? Because gliders shall not give way to helicopters. Airplanes shall give way to helicopters. They're on the same, on the tier list, they're equals. So it's not like one has to give way to the other. Helicopters shall give way to airplanes. Again, same tier list. Helicopters shall give way to gliders. There we go. We are giving way to gliders. They have the right of way because they don't have an engine. 105. When two aircraft are converging at approximately the same altitude, which statement applies? Again, same question, different answers. We're just going to see if this one comes naturally. Gliders shall give way to balloons. Okay, so suddenly now we're seeing the term balloons come up. So gliders shall give way to helicopters. We know that's not the case. Airplanes shall give way to helicopters. That's not the case. And then the reverse here. And now we've added gliders shall give way to balloons. Yes, they shall. Everything should give way to balloons. That little sketch I wrote, balloons, balloons, gliders towed everything else, which is power driven heavier than air aircraft. Okay, so next is 106. So going to 106. When converging at approximately the same altitude, okay, again, same question, right? Approximately the same altitude, balloons shall give way to gliders. Impossible, balloons can't give way to anything. Airplanes towing, also, I noticed that they always use this aeroplanes. Again, old-fashioned language in these tests. Airplanes towing gliders shall give way to balloons. Yes, actually, right? Because balloons are the least maneuverable. That one makes sense to me. Balloons shall give way to gliders. Impossible. Balloons shall give way to airships. Ah, okay, we do see the word airships. Spoke too soon. Yeah, so balloons shall give way to airships. Not possible. You think about the Goodyear blimp, right? And it has motors on it. It has like Rotax engines. It has fans that move it around. So it is maneuverable. They take off and land that thing. If you've seen like videos of that at like Oshkosh, this is where I see them. So they are maneuverable. So that one's not correct. And balloons shall give way to gliders. Again, not correct. So airplanes towing gliders shall give way to balloons. Okay. Complicated thing in real life I've never seen, but this is making a lot of sense to me. I hope it's making sense to you as well. We'll go to 107. We're still in the collision avoidance section. It's 107, meaning it's the 7th question in collision avoidance. When two power-driven heavier than air aircraft, so two planes, are converging at approximately the same altitude, the one on the left has the right of way. I hope you know that that's not correct, because the one on the right has the right of way. Balloon shall alter heading, both shall alter heading to the left. No. The correct answer always has the word right in it. The one on the right has the right of way. I'm liking that one. The one on the right shall give way by descending. This is kind of the opposite of the one we already answered. The one on the right has the right of way. Nice. That's exactly how I remember the rule. The one on the right has the right of way. It's exactly how I remember the rule. I'm gonna answer that one, and I'm also just gonna underline this because this is the rule. In fact, I don't know if the cars. Oh, this is actually. Oh, yeah, 602.19. That's one we've been looking at. When two craft are converging, the pilot in command of the aircraft that has the other on the right shall give way. Is the way the rule is actually written. But this is confusing to me, and this is the good one. On the right has the right of way. Okay, 107. We'll go to 108. When two aircraft are approaching head-on or approximately so, there is a danger of collision. And there is a danger of collision. Each pilot shall. Okay. Here's the first one where you're actually talking about avoiding action. Imagine yourself in the aircraft. You're a student coming towards the pattern. You're coming towards the circuit to the airport, and you're going to join the circuit. And this is when two things do converge. Two people do converge, and we're now like figuring out who has the right of way, who should go and make entrance to the pattern, and who has to give way and do something. When two aircraft are approaching head-on or approximately so, there is a danger of collision. Each pilot shall. Okay, so the way I'm going to draw this one is like, imagine this is the runway here, and I don't know, here's the circuit, cross overhead, base, and final like this. And we want to join from over here, and two pilots are coming in. You and somebody else are coming in this way and this way, right? And you're gonna collide right here. And yeah, or maybe another thing is maybe the practice area is out over here, and somebody's coming back from the practice area, and you're going out to the practice area, and it's approximately so that it's a head-on collision. The options are decrease airspeed, increase airspeed, alter heading to the right, alter heading to the left. Okay. For this pilot, his right is here and his left is here. And for this pilot, her right is here and her left is here. So if both pilots altered their heading in a way that wasn't the same, if he turns his heading to the right and she turns her heading to the left, there's going to be like a collision because both people are going to turn into each other. If both pilots turn to the right or both pilots turn to their left, you'll be fine. So there has to be a rule. The rule is that both pilots alter their heading to the right. Again, the correct answer in the test has the word right in it. And this is a rule that's kind of easy to remember. The right thing to do is turn your heading to the right. The person on the right has the right of way. It's always about the right. In this case, if both pilots turn their heading to the right, if he turns his heading to the right and she turns her heading to the right, we can see that there's very easily avoided. Even if it's just like not necessarily a head-on collision, but you're kind of just close to each other, it is nice to kind of cross paths with an aircraft and then see them like definitively banking to the right, and then you can definitively bank to the right, and it kind of indicates to each other that you see each other. Hopefully you're talking the radio in that case, but maybe you're not, and you just definitively see each other and alter your headings to the right. It indicates like just good airmanship, being ahead of the aircraft, knowing what to do, and yeah, keeping the margin of safety as big as possible. Okay, so the correct answer has the word right in it, alter heading to the right. The decrease speed, increase speed is purely for someone who hasn't looked at the questions before. It's really that simple. That's never the correct answer. That's nothing to do with anything. So this was easy. This was just two options, and one of them had the word left in it. And I already told you the correct answer never has the word left in it. Okay, cool. Okay, yeah. To the right is the right of way. We see green. It'll go red when I get one wrong, which I will. So, which two aircraft are approaching head on? Yeah. So we also see this is in the AIM. We can find this in the AIM, in the RAC section, in the RAC. It explains this a couple different times. We can go look at that if need be. Okay, 109. When overtaking an aircraft at your 12 o'clock position at your altitude, you should. Beautiful. This is the first time we're seeing something new as well. So if we're overtaking an aircraft at our 12 o'clock position, let me just draw that. There's also no harm in drawing these questions out if it helps you visualize it. We're overtaking an aircraft at our 12 o'clock. That means they're here and we're here. What do? Do we climb over them? Do we descend under them? Or do we alter our heading to the right and do we alter our heading to the left? What did I say? I hope the answer really pops out. I hope it's very clear that it's about altering heading to the right. And in this case, actually this is the same in boating. If you have a place in your mind for being on the water, if you boat, it's the same rule. We're just going to alter our heading to the right, basically drive around them to the right. So again, I feel like that's a freebie almost. Let's see, is this the right one? Yeah. 1.10. Two aircraft are on approach to land. Okay, this one, we're suddenly seeing something new. 10. Two aircraft are on approach to land. The aircraft at the higher altitude shall. Okay, so think about this logically. If I draw the runway, think about this logically. It's a dangerous thing to say, but okay, here's one aircraft is on approach and two aircraft are on approach to land. The one at the higher altitude. Here's one at a higher altitude. The aircraft at the higher altitude will have the right of way, shall overtake the lower aircraft on the left, shall give way, or shall complete a 360-degree turn to the right. Okay. Have the right of way. Well, I'll tell you in this case, it's all about the aircraft that kind of has priority to land and would be safer to land. So if we think about the higher aircraft, it's going to have to somehow pass the lower aircraft in order to get down to the ground. It's going to have to pass the altitude of the lower aircraft. And that's not the safest. It makes no sense to give them priority. The one that's the higher up definitely has to give up the approach. And so have the other on the right doesn't apply here because they're probably in line. or close to inline. So we're not going to use kind of left or right to cause priority here. We're going to use altitude itself. We're going to overtake the lower aircraft on the left. That doesn't make much sense. It would never be on the left. I already told you if it's on the left, that's not the right answer. Give way or complete a 360-degree turn to the right. I told you that the right answer has the word right in it. In this case, that doesn't apply. A 360-degree turn is really compelling in a lot of cases. You can see on YouTube lots of examples of people who have tried to give spacing by doing a 360-degree turn in the pattern, or in a flight of multiple aircraft where they're all following each other at slow speed, doing an approach to an air show or something, or an event where a lot of times I've seen people doing those STOL events where they're take off and land as short as possible. And in order to give spacing to the guy in front, somebody is doing a 360-degree turn at slow speed, slow flight stall, turns into a some kind of stall close to the ground that's not recoverable, and that can be like a deadly accident. So a 360-degree turn for spacing is, I hate that they even put it here because it just puts it in your mind, but it's almost never, I'll say it's like never the appropriate move. It's just a totally dangerous move, especially in the circuit. So the answer is give way. The person at the higher altitude shall give way. The scenario is you and somebody else are on final. You didn't know that they were on final, or it's getting close. You thought you had given them spacing, but now you're both close to it. It's not like because you're faster, you're gonna overtake. The person who's higher shall give way. Just begin an overshoot, carry out an overshoot, go back on the upwind, and then turn crosswind and just do another circuit. So it's the one on the higher altitude shall give way. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, cool. That's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Oh, okay, 201. So we're into the next section. Okay, we nailed collision avoidance. I hope most of those questions were pretty straightforward. I think that last one is the only one that had a bit of new rules, which was height meaning something on landing. But I also think it's pretty logical. And don't allow that 360 thing to kind of get in your head. Dangerous move. People die doing that. Should I pause this? Should I keep going? Okay. Editor, cut that out. Okay, so visual signals is section 2. Here's visual signals. We're into a new thought process here. Let's keep going. A series of green flashes directed at the aircraft means respectively in flight and on the ground. Yeesh. Okay, there is a table of this. We'll go look at it in the reference, but there is an actual table of these things, and it's in a book, and we just kind of have to have a mind's eye for it. So a series of green flashes directed at an aircraft means respectively something in flight and something on the ground. So in flight, if we see green flashes, and also we're talking about like a powerful flashlight that the tower has, and maybe your like local FBO might have, perhaps if like it's a flight school, and it's like this is like big, it looks like a flashlight, like a powerful flashlight, and it can be directed at the aircraft, and it can flash green lights, it can hold a green light, it can flash a white light, it can flash a red light. I think that's all it's done. I've had a demo of it one time. You can ask a tower to flash it at you. Kind of cool if they have nothing else going on. You can ask your instructor, or you can even ask them just to see it. It is one of the reasons that pilots need to not be colorblind, is you have to be able to see this flashing light. So yeah, it's this flashing light does exist, and it's typically in the tower. And this is how you would get information if you were NORDO. No radio, we call that NORDO. And if you were NORDO because your radio either failed or something and you needed information, this is one way that they could get you that information. So on the test, they're asking you this so that if someone has to flash a light at you because you're NORDO, you have comms failure or something, you can still get information. It is kind of important, obviously. I've never been in a situation where I needed this. Okay, series of green flashes. A flashing light of green is being directed at you. In flight, it means you're clear to land. or on the ground, it means you're cleared to taxi. Okay. In flight, return for landing, or on the ground, cleared for takeoff. In flight, return to landing, or on the ground, cleared to taxi. In flight, cleared to land, on the ground, cleared for takeoff. Okay. Oof, geez. I really don't know. I think I'm gonna have to. Okay, so I know that the flashing green, I believe, is cleared to land. So that's gonna take just these two for me. And then it's a clearance rather than a telling you to return. That's really the difference. These are telling you to return, this is a clearance, but I don't really know. I'm gonna go for this one, cleared to land and cleared to taxi. That's my gut. It might be this one though. Okay, I'm gonna click it. Eee! Okay, so here's my first one I got wrong. So, okay, so it's not what I said. Okay, so when we get it wrong, we see red, and then the correct answer is in green. Okay, so this is from the AIM, the Aeronautical Information Manual. If you don't have one of these, you need to really get one of these. They are free online. You can get a PDF version of it online. We'll go get it right now. I'll show you exactly how to get it. So let's just see if Bernoulli can help me understand it. They are actually tables. Table 4.3 and 4.2. And this is probably everything we need to know right here. I'm actually just gonna make a few notes of this. So steady green in flight means cleared to land. So the steady green is a clearance. Okay, steady green is a clearance. Series of green is return. So the steady green is kind of more critical than the flashing, because the flashing is like, okay, come on back for landing. And then the steady green means like your green light, you can definitely go. And then steady green on the ground is cleared for takeoff, and flashing is cleared to taxi. Okay, so again, the flashing isn't as kind of high level as the steady. So if it's steady green on the ground, it's like take off. And if it's flashing green on the ground, it's like prepare for takeoff, you can taxi around. So that makes sense to me. I got mental space for that for sure. So the steady green is like the higher priority one. Okay, so if I wanted to go find this, honestly, just grab this and copy and paste this. And let's go paste it here. And we can either grab the actual manual, which is a PDF. Here's actually the PDF, right? Oh, this is just the rack section. The rules section. The AIM is a big textbook, and it's split into a couple different sections. One of the sections is the rack, rules of the air. And I know that it's 4.2 because Bernoulli told me that. So I'm just gonna go to 4.2. 4.2, I'm just gonna click here. And I know there is a table somewhere. Here it is here. Visual signals. This is the table that the answer of the question is on. You can copy this down if you'd like. We'll keep it open here. Let me just zoom in a bit. So, yeah, here it is here. And is there a 4.3? Bernoulli said there was a 4.3. I don't see a 4.3. Maybe I misunderstood him. I don't think so. I see 4.2. Okay, so it looks like there's a steady green lights. Oh, this is visual signals on the ground. Yeah, maybe there is in the air. Here it is. Okay, Bernoulli was right. There's a visual signal in the air, and it looks like series of green flashes, steady red is going to be the most important. Give way to another aircraft circling. Series of red is like do not even come near. So again, it's like further back out. You would see a flashing red first. So I guess in this case, as you're approaching the airport, you would see flashing green. It's like, yeah, come on back. And then you would kind of get set up in the circuit, and then possibly on downwind and base, you would see a steady green light, which is normally when the tower would be like, okay, yeah, cleared to land. and then kind of the airport is yours. And vice versa, you would see blinking red early, and then maybe late in the approach, you would see a give way to another aircraft and stay in the circuit. Dang, the firing of a red pyrotechnical light. Do not land for the time being. Yikes. I've never seen that. I've never seen that. I don't know. But this would be in flight. They would send a flare. I guess it means aircraft do not safe. For airport not safe for the time being. Okay, and then one sec. Just go back to this one. Steady red, blinking runway lights. There's two things here. Steady red light means stop whatever you're doing, and then series of red flashing lights means taxi clear of landing area in use. Taxi clear of landing area in use. Flashing red means get back onto the taxiway, I guess. Steady red means stop. They just want you to stop for safety. That makes sense. I can definitely understand that. And then flashing white light. I told you they can do a white light as well. They can switch it to a white light and return to the starting point of the airport. If they just want you back on the ramp or back on the ramp. Whichever ramp you came from or whatever. Just off the maneuvering area into a parking spot. Blinking runway lights. This you do see. Advises vehicles and pedestrians to vacate runway immediately. You'll see this when like an airport has maybe a ground crew doing bird activity or checking the runway or something. Blinking runway lights you'll definitely encounter more frequently than anything. It just means get the pedestrians or the vehicles off the runway immediately. Definitely seen that before. Okay, so I feel like I have done my review now. Let's just keep going. So that spoke to my first rule, which was try the question. I said, I'm not really quite sure, I don't know. And instead of going into deep dive into what I was doing and deep dive into studying before I even knew if I had any intuition, I just chose I chose a question, saw, and then had a place for it as I studied. Okay, so let's go. 202. 202, a steady red light directed at the aircraft means in flight and on the ground. Okay, so steady red light in flight, I think that meant give way to the other aircraft. Give way to other aircraft and continue circling. So these two are both the same. On the airport unsafe, do not land. No, that was the flashing one, so not those two. On the ground, it meant stop, yes. That is exactly what a steady red light meant. Steady red light meant stop, and in the air, it meant give way and continue circle. Okay. Makes sense, I hope. 203. A series of red flashes directed at an aircraft means respectively. Okay, red flashes. This is where you really have to read the question and make sure that you are doing what the question is asking. A series of red flashes. Red flashes. Red flashes is something you would see early. So it means do not approach, do not land. Do not approach the aircraft, or do not approach the airport. And on the ground, what did red flashing meant? It meant taxi clear of the runway. So that's what taxi clear of the area of the landing area in use. Not that one. This one. Return to starting point of the airport. Do you remember that was if you get flashed or white lights? Not that one. So it's this one here. Okay, good. So our little bit of review has helped me a lot. I hope that makes sense to you. We can just always take this and draw this out a couple of times. We have, I could draw this table here and then kind of fill it in. And that would definitely help me if I didn't have space for it. But they kind of made sense. Yeah, the hard colors when they're steady, it's like the more intense rule, the more hardcore rule. And then when they're flashing, it's something that you would see earlier in the process of landing. Okay, 204. A steady green light directed at the aircraft means respectively in flight and on the ground. I can do this without looking. Steady green light would mean cleared to land, and steady green light on the ground means cleared for takeoff, because that would be like the most intense version of this. Just trying to organize my note. Okay, I think it would be this one and this one. Number 4. Cleared to land and cleared for takeoff. Let's go. Okay, there's a pattern here. These are all just the same questions, again, kind of repeated. And so a flashing white light directed at an aircraft on the maneuvering area at the airport means, cool. It means return to the starting point of on the airport. Yeah. A flashing white light, yes. Yes, yes. So they use green and red and white. I'm not exactly sure because people who are colorblind have green, red colorblind have trouble seeing the distinguishing between those two exactly. So I wonder if they could choose better colors, but those ones they choose. Okay, 206. Blinking runway lights advise vehicles and pedestrians to vacate the runway immediately. Beware of the emergency in progress. Continue with caution. No. Be aware of the emergency in progress. Hold your position. No. So vacate the runway immediately. Okay. Good. As we have seen so far, the first 6 questions of this section are just verbatim from the table. And if you didn't know about the table, like if you were studying this somehow and you didn't know about the table, then yeah, that would be rough. That's why I've made this test, because it's very clear here. Let's just see. Yeah, it's just, Bernoulli's gonna always just give you that same reference. And there's really nothing more to say here. You could go into this and look closer at the on the ground section. Let's see. It does talk about Nordo departures and why you might be able to get this. I kind of talked about that. That's what this video is for. I'll cover all the information here. I'm a nerd. I've read that too many times. So let's see. 205, 206. So we're at 207. Okay, I kind of alluded to this. So here's a new type of visual signal. We're off the chart now. Chrome, yellow, and black strips painted on pylons or on the roof of a building identifies. I have actually seen this before. This does exist. You'll be flying along, in unbuilt up areas, countryside type areas. And you will see, yeah, I haven't seen the pylons, but I've seen it painted on a roof before, a barn. And they are black strips. They look like yellow and black strips. So they are indicating what? An area where explosives are in use, a fur farm, an artillery range, or an open pit mine. I love these answers because they are all things that you do have to think about, you do have to see. Typically open pit mines, explosives are in use, blasting areas. You'll see NOTAMs for those. They'll have a radius and a NOTAM for that. And so they aren't really painted. It is this fur farm. The fur farms have this chrome, yellow, and black strips. And these are always this question has always been really easy for me to remember because the word chrome yellow, where else do you see that? So chrome yellow, I think about it like hay or whatever, and just the fur farm. Yeah, so it's fur farm. They're worried about animals getting spooked and freaked out by the sounds of loud aircraft flying near them. And so they don't want us to fly close to fur farms, close being less than 2,000 feet advised. So they don't want us less than 2,000 feet AGL above a fur farm. So they paint these kind of chrome roofs. Chrome, they look yellow. They look yellow in real life. Yeah, avoid them so that the animals don't freak out. They can shed or they could get nervous, and I think they like rub up against posts and stuff when they're nervous, and that somehow wrecks the fur, I guess. I don't know. Here's the reference to it. In the AIP Part 2, AIP is a different section of the AIM. Fur farms may be marked with chrome, yellow, and black stripes painted on pylons or roofs. I've seen roofs. In addition, a red flag may be flown during whelping season, which is February to May. I guess that's when they grow. This unique marking helps pilots identify these fur farms. And let me just ask Brunelli about the 2,000 feet. Okay, so the regulations require you to stay at least 2,000 feet above any built-up area or special use area like a fur farm. Yeah, that's this 2,000 foot thing. You'll see that popped up a lot. 2,000 feet is kind of this kind of catch-all. Yeah, it's to minimize disturbances to the animals and any people on the ground. Yeah, it's to minimize disturbances. We could go to the section. I've named all these so that you can literally just copy and paste this into a browser, and this will get you the relevant section. Very easy. We're doing it together, but here it is in the AIM. We could search it in the AIM. Okay. Brunelli did it for us, so not necessary. Let's see, 205, 206, 207, 208. Gotta make these easier. Okay, 208. Pilots should not overfly reindeer or caribou at an altitude of less than, guess, right? Guess. I guess I just led the question, didn't I? If you're saying anything less than 2,000, come on, keep up. Okay, 2,000. It's kind of this catch-all. That was 208. And that is the end of sections of section 2. So the visual signals is just the chart, sorry, the table 4.2 and 4.3. That's section 2, and the fur farm thing. And then the fact that we have to stay 2,000 feet above animals in general. Reindeer and caribou, this is a rule that, sincerely, I mean, how are you, this is a strange one, but like if you're flying northern Canada, there's big migrating groups of deer and caribou and things that I've never seen myself, but I've seen videos of it, and just like don't dive bomb them. You can separate the herd or freak some of the animals out. So that's what that's rule's about. They say 2,000 feet. Okay, we're in our next section. Okie dokie. Section 3, communications. Radio communication and ATC. Communication, yeah, refers to that. Okay, if you haven't already grabbed a piece of paper and kind of following along with these, then, you know, I suggest doing that at this point if you're invested. Go on the website, get set up on the PSTAR. You need to make an account. It's all free. Make an account, go to the PSTAR, and like, let's work through these together. I'll do it with you. When making the initial contact with a Canadian ATC unit, the pilot of the aircraft, Charlie Golf Foxtrot Lima uniform, should transmit the manufacturer's name of the aircraft type of aircraft, followed by the registration as. What the question here is asking is, how do you identify yourself? So you would say, Cessna 152, Charlie Golf Foxtrot Lima uniform. You would say your whole call sign first. If you're speaking to a Canadian ATC unit, typically you don't actually have to say the Charlie part. You'd only say that if you're in the US, indicating to them that you're not a N-registered aircraft, which is an American registered, N-reg, you're a Canadian one. So you would just say Golf Foxtrot Lima uniform. You would say the full identification. And you don't have to say the Charlie. Sometimes I do accidentally say Charlie when I go back and forth across the border. If I've been flying in the US a bit and then you fly into Canada and you're just used to saying it because you've said it for the last like 100 radio transmissions. And it's not a big deal, of course. It's not a big deal if you say Charlie. It's just redundancy. They know. So you would say Golf Foxtrot Lima uniform. And then all the subsequent messages after that, you're allowed to just kind of repeat back what they say to you. So you might say Cessna 172 Charlie Golf, or you might say Cessna 172 Golf Foxtrot Lima uniform, and they'll come back and say Foxtrot Lima uniform, say your intentions. And you say, I'm inbound requesting a full stop Foxtrot Lima uniform. You're allowed to like drop as many letters as they've dropped for you. Cool. That's probably what this says, honestly. Let's see. Say the aircraft name and the last 3 letters of the registration. Last 4 letters of your registration. On initial contact should transmit the manufacturer's name followed by the last 4 of the registration. Good. Yeah, that's all we have to say here. Cool. So that's number 1. I hope that rule is clear. We basically say the full reg. In Canada and in the US, another thing that sometimes they ask you to do is instead of saying Charlie, they ask for Canada. I notice a lot of people doing that. I don't think that's a rule anywhere, but I see that. Like Canada, Fox, Bravo, Sierra, Quebec. Okay, so when making initial contact to the Canadian ATC unit, I do like that they've specified that, the pilot of the aircraft, Charlie, Fox, Bravo, Sierra, Quebec, should transmit the registration as, they don't want you to say FBSQ. They don't want you to say Fox, Baker, Sugar, Queen. It's not up to you. They just want you to use the correct military spelling alphabet. It's not a phonetic alphabet. A lot of people call it that, but it's not a phonetic alphabet. I could geek out about that, but it's not a phonetic alphabet. Foxtrot, Bravo, Sierra, Quebec. So this one's just testing that we know the military alphabet. Cool. Let's go to 4.3. Oh, actually, it said it there. It said about how it's the NATO alphabet. After a Canadian spelling alphabet. After a Canadian privately registered aircraft has made initial contact with an ATS unit, air traffic service, which items may be omitted from the subsequent transmissions? You may omit the aircraft type, they give you that, the aircraft type, and any registration letters omitted by ATC, or the ATS, in the last communication. I mentioned that already. And the first 2 letters of the registration, if initiated by ATS, and the first 3 letters of the registration. The aircraft type and the phonetic equivalents. I see what this last one means. This one means like after you make the initial contact and you say Fox, Tango, Sierra, or whatever that was, after that you might just be able to say FTS. You do actually see people doing this, but that's not the rule, not what you should do. You do hear people do that, but that's not the rule. And the first 3 letters of the registration, no, you don't just drop that. Anyways, I already said, if initiated by ATS, you can do it as well. Okie dokie, that's 3. So you can drop them if ATS drops them. On initial radio contact with an ATS, air traffic service unit, the pilot shall transmit the, also this word unit, they just refer, that's like, this is all one thing. The air traffic service unit. The pilot shall transmit the manufacturer on initial contact, radio contact with ATS, the manufacturer's name of or aircraft or type of aircraft, sorry, dyslexia, and last 4 letters of the registration in phonetics. Yes. This is the one, right? This is just the same thing we've seen in a different form. So you're gonna choose the first one. We can find this in the TC AIM, COM, and call signs for civil aircraft. Verbatim, what it says is, on initial contact, the pilot should transmit the manufacturer's name or type of aircraft. When they say aircraft type, they might say this to you if you forget to do that. You might make a contact with an ATS and say, hey, this is a Golf Bravo Juliet Whiskey, inbound, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they might say to you, say aircraft type. And they want you to say, I'm a Cessna 152. And that's for them to understand It's sometimes for a census. They take like census reports of what aircraft come in and out of the control space. It also is just for like spacing and speeds and just the controller's situational awareness, obviously. So it's, yeah, situational awareness for the controller to know what speed they're expecting you to be at. Yeah, it's great to give ATC that information from the start, obviously. And they're expecting it. And actually recently there was a circular reminder that went out. We can look at that too. I can do that in a different video. Just reminding people to please make initial contact properly. So yeah, it is something that people get lazy on. Okay, 305. 305. ATS is normal. I have my pen in my hand, even though I'm not making a ton of notes, but it just helps me stay focused. ATIS is normally provided. Is a great question. To replace the FSS, Flight Service Station, to relieve the frequency congestion, for the rapid updating. Hi, you can be in my video.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I'm getting delivered lunch. Thank you. Oh. Okay, so to relieve frequency congestion, just make sure everything's on. For the rapid updating of weather forecasts, only when VFR conditions exist at airports. ATIS, the Automated Terminal Information System. ATIS. We say it ATIS instead of Alpha Tango India Sierra, but we actually pronounce this for some reason. So the ATIS is automatically updating, sometimes by the controller, sometimes by the top of every hour. If conditions do change rapidly, then it updates if there's something significant. But the ultimate purpose of it is so that the controller does not have to tell you the weather. You can go and look at it, you can listen to it, you can hear NOTAMs, you can hear any info that is pertaining to the day, like runway closures or runways in use, or the current weather. And the ATIS, you're supposed to get the ATIS, understand it, so that the controller doesn't have to re-spiel everything to you. So it is absolutely to relieve frequency congestion. Boom. You can get this information by asking. And if you don't have the opportunity to get the ATIS because of timing or because of spacing or whatever workflow for the pilot wasn't possible, the controller can just give you all this information. So it's not the only way to get this information, but it's certainly not to replace anything. It's also to only have it in VFR weather conditions would defeat the purpose of it entirely. Where ATIS is available, the information which should be included on first contact with ATC. So after we make that ATIS, when we make the ATIS call, how do we indicate to the air traffic controller or ATS that we have seen it and heard it and understand it? I remember when I was first studying for this that with the numbers sounded like something I'd heard before. I don't really know where that's from. I don't hear it in day-to-day flying. ATIS received is not something we say. We just use the phonetic military code identifier for at the end of the ATIS. At the end of the ATIS, it will say something like information Juliet, information Foxtrot, information Alpha. And every time the ATIS gets updated, the letter changes. So we tell them that the identifier that's associated to the one that we heard, we tell them that. So we may have information India, and we say with information, then the ATIS identifier. So it is this last one here. Cool. And it's here in the AIM. It's here in the RAC of the AIM, which we already have open. There's a section called ATIS, I guess. So I double check where he said it is. In other words, by saying ATIS code with Bravo. Looks good. Let's just see where it is in what section is in ATIS. I don't know. you can go Control F and say ATIS. Control F. Here's an example. When a pilot has received current landing information with the tower or with the ATIS broadcast, initial clearance may be requested as follows. Victoria Tower, Cessna, Foxtrot, Bravo Alpha, Bravo, or Foxtrot Alpha, Bravo Charlie, altitude, whatever. It says check landing information. Interesting. These are basically, or these two things. I always hear this one. With information, Charlie, let's say. You got Charlie on the ATIS. With information, Charlie. It says here is an or. It says check landing information, Charlie. This one I don't hear at all. Saying check meaning I confirm that I have it. Check landing information, Charlie. I don't hear that at all. I've never heard that. Let's see, let's try and find the actual section. It's probably a good section for this. Let's just find it. I'm just going through the, I'm going through the sections to try and find the ATIS. Could have probably gone up to, the other way of doing it if you had a paper book is to go to the airspace, or go to the table of contents, obviously. Air traffic service, ATIS, here it is here, 1.3. Bernoulli didn't tell me that, did he? Did I just not listen carefully? No, there's no, it doesn't say 1.3, so that's kind of annoying. I wonder if I could have asked. Let me just see. What section of the AIM? We know it's 1.3. Okay, 1.3, here it is here. And we can read all about it here. It gives a little bit of an example, a spiel about what ATIS actually is. This is what information may include. Other pertinent remarks is kind of important because it might say something about like, you know, some operation close by. And then at the end of an ATIS, it'll always say, inform ATC, you have information, Bravo. And that's why people typically will say like, with information, Bravo. Yeah, like this, with Bravo. All other things that it might include is here. Yeah, ATIS is good like that. Let's just see. No, Bernoulli did not find the exact number. That's okay. Okay. So anyways, we got it right. We understand that we use the ATIS phonetic identifier, and let's move on. We're all happy. Okay. (307) Pilots operating VFR en route in uncontrolled airspace should continuously monitor blank and 121.5 megahertz when practical and not in communication on the MF or ATF frequency. What do all of these mean? Just notice a few differences here. What do these mean? VFR pilot en route in uncontrolled airspace, this is Class G airspace, Class G is the only uncontrolled airspace in Canada, should continuously monitor blank and 121.5. 121.5, easy one to remember, I'll just write it down. 121.5 is the emergency frequency. In the United States, a lot of people refer to it as guard, being on guard, being on the guard frequency. 121.5 is constantly monitored by like alerting services and many people, especially airlines, will monitor it. So you can typically find someone to respond to you right away on 121.5 if you have an emergency. Yeah, continuously monitoring 121.5 is not a bad idea. It's also a good way to relay messages over long distances. If people are flying in places that don't have a lot of ground coverage, this is a good way of doing air-to-air communication. 121.5. That's the emergency frequency, and blank is the other one. It says to monitor in uncontrolled airspace when practical and not in communication on the MF or ATF. MF, mandatory frequency, or ATF, traffic frequency, area traffic frequency, I think, or aerodrome traffic frequency. ATF is for a airport that doesn't have a mandatory frequency. Call it an ATF. So 121.5, which of these? 122.2, 122.8, 123.2, 126.7. This one is just a number you may have to remember. I wrote down 121.5 and 126.7. I just remember the way it looks. I see 6.7. Oh God, I might be set fire on the internet for that, but 6.7. Actually, that's a great way of remembering it. 126.7 is how you remember. This is called the en route frequency. And so we use the word en route in this question, and we're using the en route frequency, 126.7. This is used for air-to-air communication when there is no other frequency that you ought to be on, aka uncontrolled airspace. We can use 126.7. Monitoring and broadcasting on 126.7. It's in the AIM. It's in the RAC section. They should continuously monitor 126.7 along with 121.5, the emergency frequency, whenever they are not busy communicating on other mandatory frequency or aerodrome traffic frequencies. This practice helps you stay aware of other aircrafts in your vicinity. Yes and no. Honestly, it's a bit of I don't really love it as a frequency, because you can hear people 300 miles away making position reports on this frequency. And what tends to happen, switch to the next question. What tends to happen is you get one person speak on 126.7, and then, you almost hear a chain of people reporting their positions, which I guess maybe is the point, but it creates like kind of a complex web of like reporting, and a lot of that information is not important to you. So I don't love that frequency a lot, but listen to it when you have nothing else to listen to. Okay, 3.8 in communication. En route aircraft should, whenever possible, maintain a listening watch for aircrafts in distress on. Okay, this is just the opposite of that question. On a real test, you may get one or the other probably. The receiver mode of the ELT, emergency location transmitter. That is obviously not a radio, so we don't listen to position on that. 121.5 on the aircraft receiver. 121.5 during the first 5 minutes of each hour. The vocal frequency of the navigation aid in use. Oof, a lot of conflicting ideas here. The ELT is nothing. The voice frequency on the nav aid is nothing. Poorly explained. Nothing. This is just to confuse you. 121.5 during the first 5 minutes of each hour. You may have read this sentence before. That actually comes from a different rule about testing old style ELTs. There was a way of testing the old style ELT to see if it had like set off. When they set off, they make like a loud squeak, a loud alarm sound. And so you could tune to 125.1.5 and test an ELT. Test the ELT to make sure that it's, it will squeak for a few seconds. Anyways, it's placed here just to confuse you with the language. So it's 121.5 on the aircraft's radio, on the aircraft's receiver. So that's how we're gonna just listen, keep a listening watch on 121.5. Okay, I've probably belabored that point too hard. So let's keep going to the hard questions. Okay, 308, there we are, 309. 309. The specific frequency, distance, and altitude within the MF procedures. The MF procedures such as the frequency, distance, and altitude to follow are given in the... So the MF procedures such as the frequency, the distance, and altitude to follow are given in the... I don't love this question. It doesn't say like at the airport, at the... Like, what are you talking about? The distance and altitude to follow. At an MF. I guess MF is associated to a mandatory frequency, aka an aerodrome or airport. So aircraft flight supplement. This, if you see this, okay, pro tip on this, if you see CFS written in the question, it's very likely to use the CFS, specifically the CFS, the Canadian Flight Supplement. It gives information about the specific airports. When Bernoulli is flying with you in Fly with AI, if you're in Canada, Bernoulli has to use the CFS information in order to make sure he understands what's happening at the airport itself, at that specific airport. That document, the CFS, gives us a lot of things. We can look at one together. We will see more in this test, but it gives in the PRO section, procedure, procedure, it gives circuit altitude, circuit directions, runway directions, and so on. It also gives any non-standard procedures. I think that's basically the language, non-standard procedures. If it's in the water, there's a water aerodrome supplement. It's quite a bit shorter. So it's this first one here, the designated airspace handbook, the this is where you might find special use airspace. Transport Canada Aeronautical Information Manual. This is going to give you where the standard is, like how to fly a standard pattern. A standard pattern is 1,000 above aerodrome elevation. A standard pattern is left hand. A standard pattern, it actually goes into that for the airport, but the specific airport information is the CFS. So the AIM isn't going to give you MF procedures. Well, this is where we could actually get ourselves confused, because this question doesn't say to a specific airport. No, but frequency and altitude. Yeah, this is definitely the CFS. The AIM isn't going to give you the frequency. There we go. Boom, top one. Flight training manual. That's Transport Canada publication 1102. That's just a training guideline. Your instructor probably read that. Yes, all this is just an explanation. 310. 5. I guess it's this one. 3.1. Pilots broadcasting on an MF where no ground station is in operation should direct their transmissions to the... let's see. Pilots broadcasting on an MF where no ground station is in operation should direct their transmissions to the... Right, so an MF, mandatory frequency, is typically going to have somebody in an operating tower in the capacity of a radio. So you might contact Timmins Radio, or Valdor Radio, or Petawawa Radio, something like that. If there is no ground station in operation, you should direct your transmissions now, so you're not speaking to somebody in a ground station. Now we're going to direct our transmissions to the traffic frequency itself, the traffic, the aerodrome. So there is no Unicom. Unicom is not there. There is no unit. There is no the closest ATC unit would be on a different frequency. So it's going to be the traffic itself. A typical Ontario version of this would be one that I go to often is Wyerton. Wyerton has an MF. It's a mandatory frequency. It's a Class E airspace, but there's no ground station there. So we direct our calls to traffic. Similarly, sometimes MF have a ground operator, but they're not there constantly monitored. So at like 9 p.m. it switches to just like contact traffic. And usually it says something about that in the CFS. First aircraft around the frequency. So it's aerodrome traffic. Pretty sure. Hope I don't get tripped up on that. Okay, aerodrome traffic, yes, that's correct. So let's go to the next one, 311. Pilots operating in VMC and intending to land on aerodromes where no Unicom exists should broadcast their intentions on the ATF. Okay, VMC, what's VMC? VFR, meteorological conditions. So we know that the aircraft is kind of VFR, they're intending to land at an air, this is kind of important because if it's an IFR flight, there may be some kind of different ops. So VFR, intending to land at aerodromes where no Unicom exists, there's no frequency to exist, should broadcast their intentions on the ATF of, this is kind of like the standard one, let's say. Okay, we actually can see all of these. We've seen all of these before, I mean to say. 121.5, emergency frequency. 126.7, en route frequency. 123.45, interesting one. This is like an air-to-air frequency. I didn't know about this until after my PPL for sure. 123.45. I once heard someone refer to it as the like Sesame Street channel, because you can learn how to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is like an air-to-air frequency. So two planes are trying to talk to each other. Or if like there's a flight of two. Flight of two is when two aircraft are flying like tight in formation and one of them is making calls for both. So it's like, oh, flight of two is turning downwind. It's a totally legit thing. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 123.2 is actually kind of like a reserved frequency for just aerodrome frequency. And you'll see sometimes ATFs and Unicoms are actually on 123.2. 123.2. I just remember the shape of that number, 123.2. And you'll notice a lot of Unicom frequencies are actually close to that number because that kind of bandwidth of the radio frequency is reserved for aerodrome channels. And Bernoulli just reminds us about all those frequencies. Bernoulli's better than me at this. You can go faster with Bernoulli than just me talking. Maybe I should go a bit faster. 312. If an MF is in use, pilots departing VFR shall monitor that frequency until. If an MF is in use, pilots departing VFR shall monitor that frequency until, right. Beyond the specified distance or altitude, established en route, established at cruise altitude, clear of the aerodrome circuit pattern. Use a little bit of intuition about what makes sense here. Clear of the aerodrome circuit pattern, like there's a circuit pattern and there's like the 5-mile radius around the airport. Most airports you'll see in the CFS, I'll write this down, CFS, 5 miles. You'll see in the top corner of the CFS like a distance ring, and that's like the specified distance of the airport. Establishing en route doesn't totally make sense, but maybe it does. Establish at cruise altitude definitely makes no sense. I'm just going to go beyond the specified distance and altitude, even though that might not always pertain. Let's just see what it says. Comm procedures at an aerodrome with MF and ATF, CARS 602.97, VFR and IFR aircraft operates at uncontrolled airports. Okay, the regs say that while you're inside an MF area, you must monitor that frequency. Particularly, that means you keep listening and communicating on that frequency until you're outside the MF area. The AIM recommends to continue monitoring another 5 to 10 nautical miles as a good habit too. You know what? Actually, I kind of was brain dead on that because an MF is going to have on a chart, on the VTA or VNC, on the chart itself, there's going to be a very clear definition of that airspace, because what constitutes the MF? There has to be an airspace that constitutes the MF, and on the chart and in your GPS databases, there's going to be the ring and shape of that MF, not necessarily a ring, and there's going to be an altitude, an upper ceiling for it. So the MF is always going to be well described, and that's going to be in your GPS databases and also on the VNC and Nav Canada publications for that space. So yeah, of course, there's an airspace connected to an MF. Yeah, and that's different than an ATF that might just be kind of like a 5-mile ring that I was talking about on the CFS. Yeah. I'm glad Bernoulli reminded me about that actually. Okay, 13 now. Okay, a pilot is cleared to taxi to the runway in use without a hold short clearance. Hold short clearance. To get there, the aircraft must cross 2 taxiways and 1 runway. This authorizes the pilot to, well, there's no hold short clearance. There was no hold short clearance given to them. Without a hold short clearance. To get there, the aircraft must cross 2 taxiways and 1 runway. This authorizes the pilot to taxi to the runway in use but must hold short. The runway in use but further clearance is required to cross each taxiway and runway en route. Position on the runway without further clearance. The position on the runway. The runway in use but further clearance is required to cross the other runway. Right. Okay. I'm a little confused by the way the question is asked. So you never cross runways or taxiways without clearance to cross those taxiways and runways. And if you're ever in doubt, especially crossing runways, asking for clarification is the best thing to do here. So if you are ever in doubt if you're allowed to cross a runway, ask. However, controllers are pretty good to basically say, cleared to the active runway, cross runway 32, cross runway 27, whatever they're going to say. So we have not been given a hold short clearance. So I believe we're able to taxi to the runway in use, but we must hold short. We haven't been given clearance to line up on that runway. So I'm going to say this first one. But further clearance is required to cross each taxiway. This would be good too. I wouldn't be surprised if it's this one. This one definitely not. We can't go position onto the runway. The runway in use, but further clearance is required to cross the other runway. Might be this one as well. I'm not entirely sure. Okay. So I believe the question is worded a bit hard, but we have not been given clearance to cross any runways, I guess. So the pilot is cleared to taxi to the runway in use without a hold short clearance. Maybe hold short clearance means, by definition, hold short or cross the runway. So the safest answer, I almost didn't obey my own rule here. My own rule is that you should always choose the safest option. In this case, the runway in use, but further clearance is required to cross the other runways. That would have been the safest answer. Let's see what Bernoulli spieled at us. So I answered 1, but the correct answer was 4. I can see how this might be confusing. The key here is to understand what a normal taxi clearance includes and what it does not. According to the AIM rack, the TC material, if the controller wants you to cross another runway on your way to the active runway, they must explicitly say so. For example, they'll say cross runway 12. Agreed, totally, 1000%. If they don't say anything about crossing another runway, you should not assume you can cross it. You need the hold short to get to that clearance first. Let me just read that again. You should not assume you can cross it. You need to hold short and get that clearance first. Okay. The confusion comes from thinking taxi to the runway means you can cross everything necessary, but the reference explicitly says if you need to cross another runway, the controller will give you specific instructions, otherwise hold short. Here's the relevant quote. Upon the receipt of a normal taxi authorization, the pilot is expected to proceed to the taxi holding position for the runway assigned for the takeoff. If a pilot is required to cross any runway while taxiing towards the departure runway, the ground or airport controller will issue a specific instruction to cross or hold short. If a specific authorization to cross was not received, pilots should hold short and request authorization to cross the runway. I totally agree. I think I broke my own rule of choosing what is the safest. In this case, these two were the options, and this one said each taxiway, and you don't need clearances to cross the taxiways. They're kind of intersections. Cool. Glad we did that one. 3, 1, 3, 3, 1, 6, 5. It's this one here. 3, 1, 4. Cool. Now let's see. Ground control authorizes Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie taxi runway 29, hold short of runway 04. Golf Bravo taxi runway 29, hold short of runway 04. The pilot should acknowledge this by replying Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie, the full sign back, to runway 29, taxi to runway, hold short of runway 04. We definitely need to read back hold short of 04. That's definitely important. I would prefer to read back the whole thing. I would say taxi runway 29, hold short of runway 04. But we definitely need to read back the hold short. So we'll click that. There was really no option for what I really wanted to say. To emphasize the protection of the active runway and to enhance the prevention of runway incursions, ATC is required to obtain a readback of runway hold instructions. As good operating practice, taxi authorization can contain the instruction to hold or hold short. Should be acknowledged by the pilot by providing a readback or repeating the hold points. Cool. Agreed. You have to read back. You have to read back the hold instructions. When a clearance from an immediate takeoff is accepted, the pilot shall. So if the pilot is going to accept a clearance takeoff for an immediate a clearance for an immediate takeoff, we are accepting, basically we're saying yes, we'll take that clearance. We are accepting that we're going to take off with no delays. So that does not include a backtrack. That does not include a full stop. It does not include doing a pre-takeoff checks. With an immediate takeoff is taxiing onto the runway and then taking off in a continuous movement. Taxiing past the hold short line, keeping up your momentum, and then beginning your takeoff roll, essentially, in a continuous movement. That is what an immediate takeoff is. If you can't do that, if you need to do any of the other things, do pre-takeoffs, or you need to backtrack, that's fine. You just say that you can't do an immediate takeoff. A pilot flying a heading of 270 degrees west receives the following message from ATC. Traffic 2 o'clock, 5 miles, eastbound. This information indicates that the traffic is, so 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock is here on me, right? It's 60 degrees to my right. If you draw the aircraft, okay. Forget this. If you draw an aircraft and we draw a clock, and we're saying it's at 2 o'clock, I just think of it like this. 3 o'clock is 90 degrees. 12 o'clock is right in front of us. 2 o'clock is 60 degrees. 1 o'clock would be 30 degrees. Okay. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. This is 180 degrees. This would be 210 degrees. They each go up by 30. Okay, so this is, if we say we have an aircraft at 2 o'clock, we're saying that the aircraft is over here at 60 degrees, something over here. Okay, so traffic 2 o'clock, 5 miles eastbound. 60 degrees, that means it's to our right. And what does it say? 5 miles eastbound. Altitude unknown. We do not know the altitude of this aircraft because it didn't say anything about the altitude. So altitude unknown. We don't assume same altitude. So 60 degrees to our right. Here it is here. 60 degrees to the right, altitude unknown. The message does not include altitude information, so we say the altitude is unknown. The RAME ATC says altitude will be provided if known. If no altitude is given, altitude assumed to be unknown. Okay, simple. 316. A pilot receives the following ATC clearance. Clear to land, right turn at the first intersection. Cleared to land, right turn at first intersection. This is a clearance you might hear on when you're on final at a controlled airport. First intersection means the first safe intersection, or where two runways are going to cross, and it's kind of the first intersection where the runways cross. Let's see what the options are here. Land and attempt to turn off even though the speed is considered too high to safely accomplish the turn. Of course, that's not true. ATC will never ask you to do something that might be unsafe. Complete a touch and go. Well, I shouldn't have said that. ATC doesn't know that they may ask you to do something unsafe, but the expectation would never to do something unsafe. So if ATC does clear you to do something unsafe, you don't comply with it. You do what you need to do to maintain, as high level of safety as possible, and then you communicate it afterwards. Aviate, then communicate. So I didn't mean to say ATC will never clear you to do something unsafe. So we don't want to do that. That's unsafe. Complete a touch and go if it is not possible to safely accomplish the turn. No, we don't want to put the aircraft back in the air. That wasn't the intention of the clearance. Land and turn off at the nearest intersection possible, commensurate with safety. Yeah, that's it. Land and do a 180 turn and and taxi back to clear the runway at the required intersection. No. The intention behind that clearance was probably for just expedition, for safety, for speed, to say, yeah, once you land at the first intersection that you're available to get off the runway, you can use that. They're trying to be courteous. It may have been because of other taxiway closures. Maybe a taxiway is closed and they're telling you, use taxiway Charlie. Different scenario though. I think that's a different scenario entirely. This one says safety. We turn off at the nearest intersection possible, commensurate with safety. Boom, bada bing, bada boom. Commensurate with safety means don't do something risky just because they said so. We can discuss that further with Bernoulli. This is a great topic to discuss further. 14, 17, 18. The radio telephone distress signal to indicate serious and/or immediate danger requiring immediate assistance is the radio telephone distress signal. How do you indicate serious or immediate danger? Imminent danger. This is the classic Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. I think this one is kind of street knowledge almost. 18, 19. The radio telephone urgency signal to indicate a condition concerning the safety of an aircraft, vehicle, or some person on board which does not require immediate assistance. This is the other one. Just like Mayday doesn't really mean anything to me, Pan doesn't really mean anything to me, and this is the one that we use. These emergency and urgency ones they make a lot of sense, but that's not what we say. Pan. Where does that even come from? I don't know. I'm just interested. Did he even say? A mechanical failure. Pan. Okay, comes from French. I thought cassé meant broken. Okay, cool. Is an adopted French term. Cool. 1920. Yeah. What should be included along with the call sign of the aircraft and time to indicate cancellation of a distress message? Cancellation of a Mayday message. I think it's this big ridiculous one, honestly. So it's either Mayday three times, all stations, distress traffic ended out. Mayday once. Hello all stations 3 times. All stations, all stations, all stations. This is blah, 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 transmitting the message. Then you say, oh, I clicked accidentally. Did it take it? Okay, it is that one. I remember it being this really big, long-winded thing. Silence fini. I guess you say all of it so formally and long-winded to indicate that the emergency is truly over. It does seem verbose and old-fashioned. Okay, so yeah, it's this the big long one. Mayday, all stations, all stations, all stations. This is call sign. We are no longer having an emergency. We've restored power and we're over top of the airport within gliding range. We're gonna now land. It is 1300 Zulu. Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie. Silence fini out. As if you'd remember to do that. But anyways, good to know. That's the question. Ultimately, just being super clear that you're over it. What should a departing flight will normally remain on tower frequency until. A departing flight will normally remain on tower frequency until flies at least 2,000 AGL, 25 nautical miles from the airport, 15 nautical miles from the control zone, clear of the control zone. Yeah. It's clear of the control zone if you're on a tower frequency. These questions don't clearly indicate it, but they assume it. Like, you're on a tower frequency, so you're in a control zone because you're on a tower frequency. And then when you're clear of the control zone, you'll change from tower frequency. It is possible to exit the control zone vertically. So if the control zone goes up to 3,000 feet and you climbed up past 3,000 feet, you are technically out of the control zone. And you may say, if traffic or tower Golf Alpha Bravo Charlie is clear of the zone, 4,000 feet. A lot of the times a tower will actually just say, hey, can you just let me know when you're clear of the control zone? And you'll be on your way. And so you kind of fly along into the control zone. When you leave it, you can just say, hey, clearing the control zone. So pretty common. You advise ATC that you're on the downwind leg. If there is other traffic in the circuit, ATC will then you advise ATC that you're on the downwind leg. If there's other traffic in the circuit, ATC will then probably give you a number. So inform you of your number in the approach sequence or other appropriate instructions. Inform you of the runway in use, winds and altimeter. Advise you of all other circuit traffic. Clear you to land. Okay. Well, these all seem similar to me. Clear you to land, not necessarily. They'll clear you to land not when you're in the downwind. Advise you of all other circuit traffic. They may not do that because there may be some irrelevant traffic, like something just departing or on crosswind. Inform you of runway in use and wind and altimeter. Probably they may do that if they haven't yet. It's not the craziest thing, but I don't think they will do that because you're on the downwind leg. Whereas I think this first one, inform you of your number in the approach sequence or other appropriate instructions. I do think that's appropriate because then you know if you're like second with someone on base, you know where to look for that traffic. I do think this is the most appropriate one. I would like to see the reference on this though. Okay, so it is on the the rack initial clearance. It's called initial clearance. When the pilot is given a clearance to the circuit by ATC, it is expected that the aircraft will join the circuit on the downwind leg at circuit height. After joining the downwind leg, the pilot will be given further instructions to continue the traffic circuit. So it's saying the other questions are wrong because that's not what ATC would provide just from that report. I still don't really love it. I know it because initial clearance. Let's just go to the initial clearance. Just looking for it. Here it is, initial clearance. Initial contact, initial clearance. So we're in the initial clearance section. Here's where we could see it is expected that the aircraft will join the circuit on the downwind. This is exactly what Bernoulli just read to us, right? Cleared to the circuit authorizes the pilot to join the right turn in order to join the crosswind. Here's the call. Once established in the circuit as cleared, the pilot is advised to advise the tower accordingly. We say, tower, Alpha Bravo Charlie, downwind. We've now joined the downwind. And then we can expect the tower to say, Alpha Bravo Charlie, number 2, you may be number 2 or number 3, if not number 1. The pilot will give the tower will give the type, position, and color, if significant, of the aircraft to follow and other instructions on or information. What that might mean is that you're on the downwind. He might say, tower might say, you're number 2. There's a black Gulf Stream doing the approach. It's on a 5-mile final. Follow them in. And what that means is we're on the downwind. There's somebody coming in to do the approach on the same runway. They're number 1. They actually might have the landing clearance already. We don't have a landing clearance. We might here this is Alpha Bravo Charlie. We may also say Alpha Bravo Charlie, looking for that traffic, or like I have that traffic in sight. I can actually see them on the approach. And then once they come down, we'll just follow them in, just like a normal circuit. They'll probably clear us, either tell us to follow them in or clear us to turn base once they're ready for us to turn base. Okay, so it did actually say that. Pretty much this sentence was verbatim in the rack. 22 should be there, right? 23. A radio-equipped aircraft has been cleared to land at the controlled airport. The pilot should acknowledge the clearance by... A radio-equipped aircraft has been cleared to land at a controlled airport. The pilot should acknowledge the clearance by replying Roger, replying Wilco, clicking the microphone button, transmitting the aircraft call sign. The way we acknowledge is by saying the aircraft call sign, period. These are short forms. These are sometimes appropriate. Wilco stands for will comply. So if somebody says switch, I don't know, oh, hey, can you maintain shoreline until you get to the smokestack before turning inbound? Wilco. Roger is a confirmation, but it's not an acknowledgement in the same way as this. So clicking the microphone button is not chill. That's not chill. I don't know. I do see professionals do it, but it's not the rule. You do see it happen. It's not the rule. Clicking the microphone button kind of indicates like, thanks, man. Check that. You do see it. Good job. Okay, for number 4. Yeah, you want to say Roger only means you've received the message, but it doesn't explicitly acknowledge the instruction to indicate an intent to comply. Roger's legit. But again, I'm glad Bernoulli said it this way. It doesn't explicitly acknowledge the instruction or indicate intent to comply. Will-co means you will comply, but controllers actually prefer you to use their call sign as they know who's responding. Cool, I like that. Just clicking the mic without speaking isn't an acknowledgement. Like I said, that you will hear it. An initial call to Timmins FSS should be Timmins. You'll find this in the CFS. The CFS is almost the right answer to this question. You can find this information in the CFS. Flight Service Station is what FSS stands for, but there will be in the CFS, there will be what you should refer to them as, and I'm pretty sure it's radio. Yeah. Glad I got that. This is just what you call ground stations. This is in the comm section of the AIM, so we've actually moved to the comm section. Timmins Radio, not Flight Service Station or Unicom. Ground stations, it does say clearly in the comm, we can go find it, that flight service stations shall be referred to as radio. It's kind of how you acknowledge that it's a ground station somewhere. Yeah, okay, cool. Let's see. Next one. And oh, that was already 24. My bad. 25. A responsibility of Flight Information Center (FIC) specialist is to provide. This is the person when you call the 1866 number. You're going to call a flight information. You're going to call the Flight Information Center. You're going to be greeted by an automated voice and an automated menu, and then you can ask to speak to a specialist. And the specialist is going to provide flight planning services. This isn't someone who would call. You can call them en route. You can call them on a radio frequency. I shouldn't say that, but they do not do air traffic control. This is not an air traffic controller. This is not an air traffic service in uncontrolled airspace, and it's not a radar service or anything like that. It's just flight planning services. You can file a flight plan with them. You can get a weather briefing with them. You can ask questions and nerd out about stuff with them. I do like calling them about weather, especially on days where you thought the weather was going to be one way, but it turned out to be another way. Even when I'm not flying, sometimes I just like to do that call. So FIC, there's Kamloops, there's London, there's Montreal. Okay. Description there. We'll keep going. That was 25. This is 26. Question 3.26. No TAMs are. I don't know if they've switched and then switched back. Or if their meaning has changed. No TAMs. I learned it as notice to airmen. They've changed it to have more gender inclusive language, to be notice to air missions. So the M now stands for missions, or we can refer to it that way. Some publications might still have airmen, meaning a term for anybody in the air, but they've changed it to air missions, which I think isn't a bad change. Okay, so no TAMs are available at all flight information centers. They definitely are. Emailed to all pilots. They definitely are not. Issued for airport, aerodrome facility closures only. Valid for 24 hours. No TAMs. We could look at one together. I can ask Bernoulli to give me one. So first of all, they're available at the FIC. You can call them or look on the website, the NAV Canada website, or they're available through electronic flight flags like 4Flight, with pretty much perfect perfect accuracy. They're using the right databases. But we can ask, I'll just give me an example of a NOTAM. So yeah, they're just not for airport closures. They can be they can be for a lamp or a crane that's not lit. They're not emailed to all pilots. You definitely have to check, and you can definitely be caught out. Like a NOTAM could be for fuel that's not available. You fly somewhere and the fuel isn't available. Okay, so here's a NOTAM. An explanation for it. NOTAM identifier, it starts off with, I usually kind of ignore that. I don't know if there's anything worthwhile there. Airport, XYZ. Runway, there's a runway closed due to maintenance. That's something you may see, runway closure. And then it has a from and then a to date. There's sometimes an estimated date, or it's going to be replaced by a closing NOTAM. We might see questions just about that, so I won't over-explain this. And that's 6, now we're at 7. So we've done NOTAMs. Oh yeah, you can tell I've seen these questions a number of times. A new or replacing NOTAM without the term est is valid. EST. It doesn't mean Eastern time. It means estimated. So, a new or replacing NOTAM without the term est. It has no estimated time. It has without the est. It is valid until what? Well, until it has to be closed somehow, and it will be enclosed until a canceling NOTAM is issued. Oh my god, I'm wrong. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see what I got wrong. I really thought it was a canceling NOTAM issued. And I said it with my whole ass too. Okay, so I guess that's if there is no end time. In this case, there is a time, but it doesn't say est. Alrighty. It looks like you answered 4, canceling NOTAM is issued, but the correct answer is actually 3, end time quoted in the NOTAM. Here's why. A new replacing NOTAM that doesn't have an est will be valid until the specific end time listed on the NOTAM. The validity of the NOTAM lasts until the exact end time mentioned in the NOTAM, unless specified by the approximate. Okay, I broke out another rule. I think I broke rule 3, reading the question carefully. So I thought I did. I said without the est, but I kind of implied that meant without a time, without a canceling time. So it did have a time, but it didn't have the word est, which meant it was a very specific time, I guess. Okay, bit of humility. I'm back. The validity of the NOTAM lasts until the exact time period on the end. So basically, if it has an end time given, the NOTAM is valid until that point. Of course, duh. And I've seen that before. Sometimes it'll be like, the airport is under construction and crews will leave by, 2100 Zulu, and it says that, and then there isn't an EST on the end of it. I mean, you can basically plan your flight so that you're landing after that time. Yeah. Okay. Hey, man. I'm human. So, by the way, it didn't go red here because I've answered that question correct too many times, that it doesn't actually make it red. But if you did get it wrong enough times, the dot here would go red to help you hone in. But if I use this next question, that question that I just got wrong would come up because the algorithm knows I don't know that question super well. Okay, here's the other one. The term est in the end in a new or replacing NOTAM means the NOTAM is valid, estimated at that time, but it's not until a canceling NOTAM or replacing NOTAM is issued. Got it? It's not one of these 24 or 48 hours. In this case, it does have an end time, but it has an est. Got myself caught up. So, yeah, in this case, we need a replacing one. It just is estimated. So if it says est, the run, the crews are working on the runway. It's going to be open at 2100 Zulu Est. You wouldn't really want to plan that for your trip, because you would have to wait for a canceling NOTAM to actually be. It's probably like at an air show. Usually you see these types of timings being quite important. Okay, ATC advises that your radio transmissions are readability 3. This means that your transmissions are readable with difficulty. Readability 3. It's on a scale of 5, and I think it goes like this: 5, 4, 3, 2. So I think it's this one here. Readable with difficulty. Now and then would be a 2. We'll ask Bernoulli. Okay, so it goes 1 unreadable, and then I think, can you list them out for me? Just so we see it. I'll write it down too. Unreadable, readable now and then, readable with difficulty, readable, and then perfectly readable. Okay, and this is Nav Canada publication, also in the comms. This is a new section of the Okay. Signal or radio checks, 5.75. Holy jumping. Okay, it's actually here. I think we found it. And I've read this before, because I knew that the end was supposed to say, how do you read me over? Okay, when your radio station requires a signal check, follow this procedure. Call an aircraft or aeronautical ground station on any appropriate frequency that will not interfere with the normal working of other aircraft on the ground, aka just a frequency that's useful, and require a signal check. The signal check consists of signal or radio check. Signal check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How do you read me over? Your station call sign should also be transmitted during such a test. Signal check should not last more than 10 seconds. When replying or receiving a reply to signal check, the following readability scale should be used. 1, unreadable. 2, readable now and then. 3, with difficulty. 4, readable. 5, perfectly readable. Okay, we found the source. Great. It's actually 5.75 of I love that we found it. Okay, cool. So here it is. 575 on the radio telephone operators thingy. Love it. This is for me. Keep this open, because I didn't know that. It's on the ROC. Sweet. I don't know if it's somewhere else, but I couldn't find it. I don't know if it's somewhere else. There's 9. And is 9 the last one? Yeah. Okay, so we're in the new section. The new section is aerodromes. Aerodromes. An aerodrome with a paved runway. That's right. So an airport is an aerodrome with a paved runway, an aerodrome with a control tower, an uncertified aerodrome, a certified aerodrome. The definition is a certified aerodrome. Definition of an airport. It's a certified aerodrome. That's in the cars. That's in a couple different sections of the cars, and you'll see that definition quick clear. A airport is a certified aerodrome. A Dry Transport Canada standard wind direction indicator, windsock, when horizontal indicates a wind speed of at least. So windsock looks like this. You'll see a couple different diagrams of this. They have separate colors like this, and each color represents a speed increase of 3 knots. 3, 6, 9, 12, like that. And full windsock indicates a speed of at least 15. That number is easy to remember, 15. I think there might be one more section on this. 15. That's a standard windsock. 15, wind direction indicators, and let's see, at least 15. No, we don't need anything like that. They're just designed with the material and the weight and the size so that full deflection is 15. 3. No person shall operate any vehicle on any part of the uncontrolled airport used for the movement of aircraft except in accordance with permission of. Who can give you permission to use the uncontrolled airport? You might want to say tower. Well, it's an uncontrolled airport, so tower can't give you the authorization. The operator of the airport, the airport security officer, a federal peace officer, a qualified flying instructor. The operator of the airport. You're going to see this name come up a lot. The operator of the airport is actually responsible for giving people permission and authorization. So the operator. Okay, operator. This is in section 301.08 in prohibitions of the airport. Let's see, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4. Runways and taxiways or portions thereof that are closed to aircraft are marked by. How do we know when something is closed to us at an aerodrome? Section 4. Runways and taxiways or portions thereof that are closed to aircraft are marked by red flags, typically not. Horizontal red squares with yellow diagonals. Horizontal red squares with yellow diagonals. I don't know what that means. Oh, I see. Yeah, no. White X's on runways and yellow X's on taxiways. Yes, these X's indicate closedness. Sometimes they have like Christmas lights on them or like bulbs on them, and they look like very well lit. Sometimes there's just a white marker on the ground or like fabric, but it's X's that indicate it. Closed markings. X's that indicate those types of things. Okay, next. 404, 405. The west end of a runway oriented east-west is numbered. These questions can be confusing. I draw this one out. The west end of a runway. Here's a runway that goes east-west. This is the east side. This is the west side. The west end of the runway, that would be this side of the runway here. We're talking about this side of the runway. Is numbered what? Well, it's numbered 09. This one would be 27 because it's the way that it would point, right? If you're going to line up the aircraft here, if we're going to taxi onto this runway, and we're going to line up, what is our direction? We're having east direction. We're east compass direction. Our compass is going to point east because the compass on our dashboard as we point this way, right? The aircraft is like this right now. The compass is going to show east. And the compass has to line up with the runway. That's how we know we're on the right runway. And this runway is going to take off in the easterly direction like this. So we know that it is east. So the runway numbers on the west side of the runway are going to say east, 09. Where taxiway holding positions have not been established, aircraft waiting to enter an active runway should normally hold. Where taxiway holding positions have not yet been established, aircraft waiting to enter an active runway should normally hold. Clear of the maneuvering areas, 50 feet, 150 feet, or 200 feet from the edge of the runway. Wow. 150 feet would be pretty far. 50 feet is kind of as close as you'd want to get if you imagine what 50 feet is. I think typically holding short lines are about 50 feet. We're talking right now about I'll draw this too. We're talking right now about a runway that has a taxiway coming up to it like this. Taxiway that comes up to it like this. And there's no kind of painted line. There isn't a painted line that says this is your hold short. There isn't a line like this. Instead, we have to kind of imagine what to do on our own. And in that case, what do we do? Do we wait, if this is, the runway is 100 feet wide, maybe. So do we go 50 feet back or do we go 150 feet back? Let's choose 150 feet for me. I don't know exactly. This will be a good learning moment for me. Okay, so 200 feet is actually what they said. I thought that was going to be too much. 200 feet back. Yeah. How are we going to remember that? 200. I think I just need a space for this. 200. The typical runway thickness might be 100, so double that. So it's like holding two runway thicknesses away. That might be how I remember this. Not set and dry, but that's what I'm thinking. 200. Okay, 200. So we got that one wrong. 407. The maneuvering area of an airport is that area. The maneuvering area. I like this question a lot. The maneuvering area of an airport is that area. It's meant for something. Let's see. Used for what? Normally referred to as the ramp or apron. Apron and ramp are words that we do see, which include the apron taxiways and runways, which use taxiing to and from the parking area, used for taxiing, takeoff, and landing. This is the correct answer here. Used for taxiing, takeoff, and landing. The apron, we do taxi onto the apron. The aprons are kind of maneuvering areas where we maneuver the aircraft. But the definition is for taxiing, takeoff, and landing. And that's how we know something's a maneuvering area. It's in the glossary of aeronautical terms. It's simply just the definition of the thing. That's what this question is. And if you've seen that question before, that's an easy question to get right. Except for the purpose of taking off or landing, an aircraft shall not be flown over an aerodrome at a height of less than what? Do we use the 2,000 foot rule again? If we're not going to be landing at an aerodrome, how high above it should we fly? Well, we know that the aerodrome itself has a circuit of 1,000 feet, and we know people may be maneuvering around that circuit to get into it, and so we're going to give another 1,000 feet, so that 2,000 comes up again. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,000 AAE, above aerodrome elevation, is the same as AGL. 2,0 Okay, that 2000 comes up again. And what we're doing is giving space, extra space. Is that it? 408? Oops. 45, 46, 47, 48. 501. Okay, so we're done the aerodrome section, and now we're into the equipment section. We talked about an equipment section, meaning a section that is about equipment in the aircraft. These ones are hard, except for ultralight airplanes and balloons, except for ultralights and balloons. Which documents shall be carried on board when flying a radio-equipped Canadian privately registered aircraft? Items A, B, and so on. So we definitely need, they gave us A and B. A flight authority, certificate of airworthiness, or a flight permit. Most aircrafts will have a certificate of flight airworthiness. Certificate of registration, they tell us we need that, A and B. And now we need C, D, E, F, G, H, some kind of combination. Technical records. Throwing it right out there, we don't actually want to keep technical records on the aircraft. We want them to be safe on the ground. There's no need to have technical records in the air. Crew licenses. Definitely want to have crew licenses. We want to be able to prove wherever we're going that we are a licensed crew. Aircraft flight manuals and equivalent documents. That would be like a POH or an AFM, an airframe flight manual, or a pilot operating handbook, POH. So we definitely want D and E. So it's these two here so far. And let's see, aircraft flight manual or equivalent document. Oh, that's what I just read, D and E. F, type certificate. Our type certificate. I don't think so. I'm not even entirely sure what exactly they mean by that. Don't know if they mean the aircraft type certificate. G, aircraft journey log book, where it is planned that the aircraft will land and shut down at any location other than the point of departure. This clause here is actually the important clause. If you don't intend to shut down somewhere else, then you don't need to bring the journey log. So this is true. G is definitely true. C, G is included in both. So now it's just between F and H. H is proof of liability insurance. The aircraft needs to have proof of liability insurance, just like a car does. So you need your license and insurance, just like in a car. So definitely need H. So it's not F, the type certificate, which I didn't feel familiar to me at all. And it would be D, E, G, H. Awesome. So we have everything that we need here, and here's why, right? This is a question that you will see on your PPL ground portion, where you and your examiner will kind of talk about the fact that the flight is safe and the flight is legal. So safety is obviously pilot planning and understanding of the situation, and then legality is this a legal flight to take? You kind of go through and see. This is a mnemonic that a lot of people find helpful. I learned it a little bit differently. There are a lot of different versions of it. Here, anyways, you can remember it many different ways. Bernoulli is giving you this one. Airworthiness certificate, registration certificate, AR. O is owner's manual, aka POH. I remember this is the OH. W is weight and balance. Insurance, licenses, logbook. For the question of the context. I look forward to hearing other people's that are gonna be better, no doubt. 4, 3, 2, taking into account seasonal climatic variations in geographical area, private airplanes and helicopters flying VFR 25 nautical miles or more from aerodrome of operation base may require specific emergency supplies to be carried, a functioning radio capable of two-way radio communication, the aircraft be multi-engine when passengers are carried. All of the above is crazy because the aircraft, of course, doesn't need to be multi-engine. There's nothing that says that it's a commercial operation. It could be a private flight. Taking into account seasonal climatic variations and meaning, winter survival, geographical area, private airplanes and helicopters flying 25 nautical miles more from. I think it's about emergency supplies, making sure that you carry like a winter emergency supply kit. Functional radio cable, two-way radio comms, that's not necessary. Aircraft be multi-engine, that's not necessary. And therefore, all of the above isn't necessary. Let's just go with the safe option, which is specified emergency supplies be carried. Let's just hear that. Flights over land, survival equipment. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for survival equipment. 602.61 states the private aircraft flying 5 nauticals or more require seasonal and graphical forecasts factors. For example, in colder climates, survival equipment may be necessary to carry emergency landing risks. It explains that the other ones are not correct. Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm happy with that. I'm glad that's the answer because I was like, hold on a sec. Why is it telling me I need to have a multi-engine aircraft to fly 25 nautical miles? Makes no sense. 503. Serviceable landing light is required equipment on aircraft. This one really is kind of interesting because it shocked me. This question shocked me when I first learned it. I would think taking off or landing at night, my brain would automatically feel like that's the safest thing. Carrying passengers at night, except private aircraft under 5,700 kilograms, that seems very specific. This also might seem right. Using an unlit aerodrome. So the answer is about carrying passengers at night. If you're going to carry passengers at night, you need to have landing light. Carrying passengers at night, except in like small private aircraft, this makes it seem like it's something to do with like liability and commercial operating, but it's really just carrying passengers. If you carry passengers at night, you need to have a serviceable landing light. Landing light has to be working. That's night VFR. So we were getting into power-driven aircraft, night VFR 605.16. You can see we're actually bouncing it around a lot in the cars right now because the cars really speaks to minimum equipment lists for safety and regulations. Okay, 304, 504. This is going to be another cars question within the regulations of operating the aircraft in specific zones. 504. Unless oxygen and oxygen masks are specified in cars, as specified in the cars are readily available. So unless you have oxygen and masks available, no person shall fly unpressurized aircraft above something. So let's say we're in an aircraft, we don't have masks, we don't have oxygen. Unpressurized, how high can we go? 13,000 feet. I just remember this. I remember 13,000, 12,000, 10,000. These are the three numbers. 13,000, 12,000, 10,000. These are the three numbers. Okay, let's see. 13,000. We cannot go higher than that if we don't have oxygen, period. The idea here is how long you can kind of survive and not become hypoxic above these altitudes. Above 13,000 feet, people can't last very long without getting hypoxic, depending on your health and depending on how you are as the individual. There is a little bit of difference between individuals, obviously. But yeah, 13,000 ASL. No person shall fly unpressurized above 13,000 without oxygen. If you have oxygen, then you go ahead. go on about that. It's no problem. Let's see, 3.05. No person shall fly an unpressurized aircraft for more than blank time at an altitude between 10,000 and 13,000 feet, unless there is a readily available to each crew member an oxygen mask and supply of oxygen. Okay, so if you have a readily available thing, then this doesn't count. But if there is still no oxygen, so remember we said above 13,000 is a no-go if there's no oxygen. And if there's no oxygen, what happens between 10,000 and 13,000? So between the numbers I'm writing down. In that case, we need to have some kind of rule. And if I'm not mistaken, the rule is 30 minutes. I don't operate in this specific clause very often, so I don't know. This is a good refresher. I believe it's 30 minutes. It is 30 minutes. So that might be just like your cruising time. So you have a flight, you're gonna really take advantage of upper winds and the lower density of flying high. We're gonna go past 10,000 into 12,500 or something, cruise there for 30 minutes, and then descend down and be out of 10,000 feet by this 30-minute timer. And no one's gonna have oxygen. Okay. .506. What safety equipment must be available to each person on board a single-engine aircraft which is taking off from or landing on water? Float plane business. An approved life preserver for every person on board. Everybody has to have a life preserver. You don't need a life raft for everybody. You can imagine that would be a life raft might not be something you can put on a 172 on floats. Okay, it's a personal flotation device. And what that actually means, what those look like are normally non-self-inflating devices. So you don't want a life jacket that goes off itself on touching water. A lot of life jackets are like that for boats. So like if you get knocked off a boat, you want the life jacket to inflate right away. You don't want that on a aircraft life preserver because you want to be able to get out of the aircraft easily. Okay, let's see. Now, the international VHF emergency frequency is, we've already seen this. Hopefully this comes really fast. 121.5. It has a bit of a symmetry to it that I remember. 121.5. This is the guard frequency. 507. No pilot shall take off from or land at an aerodrome at night unless the no pilot shall take off from or land at an aerodrome at night unless the see how it says the aerodrome now? So before we talked about what the aircraft equipment needs to be, the aircraft equipment needs to be that it has a landing light if you have passengers. So then you say, okay, well, hold on. I'm allowed to land at an aerodrome at night without a light if it's just myself? Well, yes. As long as the aerodrome itself has this. Aircraft is equipped with functioning landing light or landing lights. We already know that that's not true. Aerodrome is lighted. I would just use the word lit, as prescribed by the minister. Pilot has completed 3 landings in the previous 90 days. This one with the minister. I'm going to take a gamble at this. What's wrong with this one? 3 in the last 90 days. What's wrong with this one here? This must be written badly. I have to think about that for a second. Aerodrome is lighted as prescribed by the minister. So that just means in the cars. Like it's a cheap answer. It's a cheap answer because by the minister means according to the cars. They'll use this word by the minister. Transport Canada minister, meaning that it's saying an aerodrome as lighted prescribed by the CARS. Aerodrome correctly lit according to the rules. So you kind of know it's that one because they said that. It's basically, I don't like that phraseology. But anyways, the pilot has completed 3 landings in the previous 90 days. 3 takeoff landings. I think it's actually in the previous 6. Shoot, I can't remember. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. I'm confusing the US and Canadian one. I'm so glad Bernoulli kind of knew that. Okay, I thought 3 in the last 90 days sounded familiar. In Canada, it's 5 night takeoffs and landings in the past 6 months for carrying passengers. I remember that with 5-6. I remember that with 5-6. Oopsies. Yeah, I remember it as 5-6 for the private. And if you're going to carry, and that is for carrying passengers anyways. Let me see. We're going to take a landing in the aerodrome unless the aerodrome is lighted by accordance with the minister's specification. Cool. Yeah, 5-6 is the passengers at night, and for private, 5-8, 5-9. The CARS define an infant passenger as a person. Okay, so there is actually a definition for what an infant is. Of the ones that come to mind: infant, man, and woman. You might not be able to get the weights of passengers before the flight. It just might not be practical. You might not have a scale. In which case you can use like the heavy estimate. There's one for infant, man, woman, and then they'll have like winter and summer weights. I think that's still how it works. I haven't checked that in a while. Maybe we can see the definition here. Weighing less than 30 pounds. That's not the case because we don't know the weight. Under the age of 3, I believe it's under the age of 2 is an infant. So we will choose under the age of 2. And then we would use the because we ask the person, how old is the baby? Oh, he's whatever, however many months. It's 2 years old. Then we'll use the infant weight. And here it is, infant. And it's in the CARS 101. 01. Interesting. Let's look that up. 101. I can find it here in the regulations section. There's 3. It's just in the definitions. Here's all the definitions of things. A, B, C, D, F, G, H. Here's L, I. Infant. It is here. And it means a person under 2 years of age. Okay. Okay, infant, done. 509. 510. When the PIC directs that safety belts be fastened, an infant passenger for which no child restraint system is provided shall be. Let's see. Fastened securely in the seat by means of a safety belt. Well, we don't have a safety belt for them. Held securely in the arms of a responsible person whose seat belt shall be fastened. Held securely in the arms of a person responsible and safety belt shall be fastened about both. Security by one of the above methods. This is a contentious topic because there's a lot of research and conversation about how being held in the arms of a responsible person is not at all adequate for the safety of an infant, period. None of the others are good either. Using the seatbelt around them is not good. Basically makes the seatbelt not work for anybody. Yeah, so this is the correct answer, but the truth is that's not an adequate way of securing an infant in the aircraft. 510. But that's the right answer. 511, last one in this section. When the PSC direct, this is still 510. Which flight instrument system and equipment are required on power-driven aircraft for day VFR flight? A magnetic direction indicating system or magnetic compass and, okay, this is a minimum equipment list, an MEL. You might see this at your flight school, or you might see this, your operator might have a minimum equipment list for themselves, but for power-driven aircraft for day VFR flight. So we need a magnetic compass and we need a timepiece. I'll give you that one for free. Timepiece. We need a watch of some kind to be able to keep the time. Is needed for dead reckoning. Timepiece. The other ones I'm just going to throw out. These are the B and C we can throw out. B and D we can throw out. An airspeed indicator, an altimeter, and a timepiece. I believe that's correct. An airspeed indicator, an altimeter, a vertical speed indicator, and a turn and bank indicator. I don't think that's necessary for VFR. We just need a compass, an airspeed indicator, an altimeter, and a timepiece. Ta-da. So what does that look like on the dash? It means we need an airspeed indicator for a timepiece, an airspeed indicator telling us, if we're gonna stall or not. We need a airspeed indicator. That's what I just said. An altimeter telling us how high we are. 2,000 feet. And we also need a compass. Right, that's all we need for a VFR flight. Yeah, tomato flames is something that people have remembered. I find it kind of easy just to think of it logically as to what we would need in order to be safe. Tomato flames is a big one. I don't actually know what it all stands for. don't even know. What does tomato flame stand for? Tomato flames. TOMATO. I don't even know. Timepiece. I know the first one. Oh, right. Manifold pressure gauges and stuff. Not specified in this question. Bernoulli won't do the American one. He knows it's too confusing. Probably learned from telling somebody tomato flames before. Okay, 511 is done, so we won't do tomato flames. Let's continue on. This is a Canadian test, so. Okay, 601. So we are finished the equipment now. We know all the questions about equipment, and now we're able to move on to pilot responsibilities. So let's take a hot liquid break for drinking and refilling our cup, and then let's do the pilot responsibilities. We have got our hot liquid. We are ready to keep going. I'm feeling good. Section 6, pilot responsibilities. We're halfway through the sections. Pilot responsibilities, I think of as a rule here where it's just like, it's the pilot's responsibility. This is not much more complicated than that. If there's an opportunity to blame the pilot, we'll blame the pilot. If cleared for takeoff immediately following the very low approach and overshoot of a large aircraft, the pilot should take off immediately, otherwise the trailing vortices will descend into the flight path. That doesn't sound safe. We're trying to like beat the vortices. A lot of this is going to be about the vortices themselves, trailing vortices. When we talk about wing vortex, we're talking about, I'm going to try and draw a wing like this. Here's the aircraft. Right, here's the aircraft going this way. As you can see, I'm an engineer. I draw really well. Okay, so we know that the wing is doing this sort of thing where there's some air going over and some air going under. There's low pressure here, and there's high pressure on the bottom of the wing. And as these kind of as these kind of airflows come over top, they have a little bit of curl in them, which means that as they have low pressure, they have a little bit of counterclockwise turn. And in the high pressure below, they have a little bit of clockwise turn. And as they come up, they actually, so if we look at this if we look at the same wing from above, it's a little bit hard to do, but if we look at this wing from above, here's the hull of the aircraft, here's the wing root, here's the wing tip. If we look at it from above, there's a little bit of, what did I say, counterclockwise. There's a little bit of counterclockwise turn on this washout. This is from above the wing, coming like this, coming like this. And on the bottom side of the wing, where the airflow is coming underneath, there's a little bit of clockwise turn. Looking at it from above, I guess, we'll just keep it conventional. It's like this. This is the bottom of the wing. So what we have is air coming from the top of the wing and doing this kind of washout and then twisting with the air that's underneath the wing. With the air underneath the wing comes up like this. And so on the back side of it, if we look back over here, the diagram that I often see, it kind of looks like a rope, and the wind is kind of, the airflow is kind of coming like this, and then there's another one coming like this, and they kind of go back and forth like this. And it kind of causes this kind of, this kind of vortexy, if we redraw all of this, kind of this vortexy spin of wind like that. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the wingtip vortex. Okay. So we should take off immediately, otherwise if trailing vortices will descend into the flight path Taxi to a position on the runway and wait until it is considered safe to take off. Decline the takeoff clearance and inform ATC the reason for non-acceptance. Wait for 2 minutes after the large aircraft has passed, then take off. If cleared for takeoff, immediately following a very low approaching and overshoot of a large aircraft, the pilot should. So we could definitely decline the takeoff clearance because we've been cleared, and then advise the reasoning. Waiting for 2 minutes is advisable, but we can't just wait and then take off. We would have to advise ATC that we're going to wait. We could taxi to position on the runway and wait until it is considered safe to take off. We could do that, but again, we'd have to communicate. Let's just decline the takeoff clearance and inform ATC of why. That one is really not about the vortices themselves. It's more about what is the pilot's responsibility. And the pilot's responsibility is to decline the takeoff clearance. Yeah. Just decline and explain why. Oh, I have to worry about this wake turbulence. The controller offers the option for a takeoff from a runway intersection. The pilot must be aware of runway intersection. I'm gonna doodle that. So like the runway might look like this, and there's like a taxiway that goes here, and there's a taxiway that goes here. And maybe because or maybe it's not even like that. Maybe it might look like this. There's another intersection here. Another runway, and you're here, and the controller might say you can take off from this intersection here between the two runways if you'd like. You don't have to taxi all the way down here. You don't have to taxi all the way down to the beginning of the runway. You can take the intersection. Another example is like, let me try another example. Another example is sometimes there's a big runway like this. Big runway like this. And you're gonna taxi. There's no taxiway, and you're gonna backtrack on this runway. And then you're either going to backtrack here and start from here, or you could start from the intersection here and take off this way. And ATC might actually give you intersection takeoff. They say, if you want, you can take off from the intersection. The pilot must be aware that the remaining runway length, it might not be stated by the controller. It's the pilot's responsibility to ensure that the remaining runway length is sufficient for takeoff. The controller will ensure that the remaining runway length is sufficient for takeoff, and the noise abatement procedures have been canceled. Wow, a lot of different information here. Noise abatement typically has not been canceled unless they say it has. Noise abatement might not even apply. There's really not enough here to talk about this noise abatement, but it has not been automatically canceled. Also, the controller has definitely not ensured that the remaining runway length is sufficient for takeoff. They don't know how heavy you are. They don't know your takeoff configuration. They don't know the specific takeoff performance of your aircraft at all. They have no idea if it's sufficient. This one here says the remaining runway length will not be stated by the controller. This might be a true statement if it says may not be stated by the controller. The controller likely will state how much remaining runway length there is. They might say something like, if you'd like, I can give you an intersection departure. The remaining runway length is 3,500 feet. And then it's up to you now as your responsibility to hear 3,500 and say, yeah, I've done my takeoff performance calculations. I'm going to be off the ground in 900 feet, and I'm going to be over 5,000, over a 50-foot obstacle at 1,500 feet. So 3,500 feet is fine. So it's the pilot's responsibility to ensure that the remaining runway length is sufficient for takeoff. It is the pilot's responsibility indeed. So we'll choose that one. And it's green. Takeoff clearances is in the 602.96. I'm feeling good about that. 601, 602, 603. So a pilot requests an intersection takeoff from ATC. If authorized, the controller will always give the remaining runway length. The controller will ensure that the remaining runway length is sufficient for takeoff. We know that can't be true. It is the pilot's responsibility to ensure that the remaining runway length is sufficient for takeoff. It's definitely the pilot's responsibility. Any noise abatement procedures for the runway are automatically canceled. Also not true, right? We kind of already saw this. If authorized, it is the pilot's responsibility to ensure the remaining runway length is sufficient for takeoff. Basically the same question. Asked a different way. So that was 603. 603, 604. A pilot requests an intersection when the arriving aircraft is cleared to the circuit. The pilot, we read something like this in rules before. The pilot should interpret this to mean join the circuit on the downwind leg. We read this in one of the cars sections, that when you're cleared to the circuit, it's assumed that it's meaning the downwind leg. On the downwind leg at circuit height, from the upwind side of the runway in all cases, in the base leg if convenient, on the final. No. If we're cleared to the circuit, it's cleared to the downwind leg at circuit height. We definitely saw that. When an arriving aircraft is cleared to the circuit, when a Nordo aircraft crosses an airport for the purpose of obtaining landing information, it should maintain, when the Nordo aircraft crosses the airport for purpose of obtaining landing information, it should maintain circuit height 1,000 feet above circuit height, at least 2,000 feet AGL, at least 500 feet above circuit height. Okay, let's just remember a few things here. Is this 605? So let's just say a few things here. Circuit height. Obviously, at circuit height, we're dealing with people in the circuit. So if we're obtaining information, circuit height might not be the right thing because other people who are Nordo may also be there. So I would say circuit height makes no sense. 1,000 feet above circuit height is going to typically be 2,000 AGL. And at least 2,000 feet AGL is the next one. So these are kind of the same thing. That's not giving me much confidence that this is the correct answer if it's kind of duplicated. At least 500 feet above the circuit height. This actually does make sense. We were talking earlier about the runway 1,000 above. This is where the circuit will be. Right? 2,000 is where we can transit above. Is where transit aircraft are going to kind of be going like this over top of the runway. And then we have this 500-foot buffer is for kind of coming in, doing a field inspection, and then descending and joining the circuit. So it is definitely this 500 middle ground, at least 500 feet above circuit height. Okay, on to 606. An aircraft is cleared to the circuit where a left-hand circuit is in effect. Without further approval from ATC, a right turn may be made. Okay, 606. Cleared to the circuit, we know left-hand circuit is in effect. Without approval from ATC, a right turn may be made to join the downwind, we said. Made to join crosswind, partial right turn to join the downwind leg. Descend on the downwind. I don't understand why they've included the word descend here. Oh gosh. Okay, so the correct answer is join crosswind or partial right turn to join the downwind. Let's just draw this out. So left-handed circuit. So they're saying a right turn may be made to join the crosswind, or partial right turn to join the downwind leg. So if you are here, you can do a partial right turn to join the downwind. Makes sense. If you are here, I guess a partial right turn to join the crosswind, and then make a left turn to join the downwind. I guess that's what they mean. So this would just require a left turn to join the downwind. Everything else just requires left turns. This would just be a left turn to join the downwind. Yeah, I guess that's what it means. Descend on the downwind leg. Yeah, I guess maybe that didn't make any sense. Yeah. I think what descend on the downwind might have indicated at this point was like descend below the circuit on the downwind is where this like clip might come from. Like descending on the downwind might mean descending to land on the downwind, which isn't really what you want to do. I thought it might meant like do a right turn to kind of get onto the downwind and then descend for the circuit, but descend on the downwind, I think in this case, yeah, descend maybe is the language that I should have just avoided. So join a crosswind or partial right turn to join the downwind. Join the downwind leg, okay. So it's the joining partial. Got it. Okay, 607. When instructed to continue an approach to the runway, which is cleared of traffic, what action should the pilot take if no landing clearance is received? Remember these ones? Don't do these ones. Do not do these. Complete the landing. Well, not without a landing clearance. We're just going to request a landing clearance. If in doubt, just ask. 607. 607 must be this one. And yeah, great job, whatever, blah, blah, blah. 608. A NOTAM has been published for the airport, which is 4,000 feet ASL. 400 feet ASL. Stating the circuit height is 1,500 ASL. When the ceiling is 1,000 overcast and the visibility is 3 miles, the circuit height in controlled airspace should be. There's an airport at 400 ASL. So this circuit is actually 1,100 AGL. When the ceiling is 1,000 overcast. Oh, I see what it's saying. The ceiling is 1,000 overcast. Here's the ceiling. At 1,000. Because the ceilings are always going to be reported AGL, right? And visibility is 3 miles. The circuit height in controlled airspace should be what? Well, we need to remain 500 feet from the cloud. So what it's going to be is 500 feet from this, which is oh, I've got this wrong, don't I? So I'm sorry. This is 900 AGL. Oh no, it's 1,100. What am I talking about? So 1,100 AGL, 5,000. It's going to be, but these clouds are at 1,400, and we have to say 500 from that, so that's 900. So we have to stay at 900 feet here, and that's 500 feet here, and this is 500 feet here. Okay. So, circuit height control airspace should be what if the overcast is 1,000 feet. So what this is like marginal VFR. We need to be 500 feet below the cloud base. And let's see, what else does it say? I think everything else is kind of whatever. So I'm going to go 500 feet below the cloud base. So this question was about understanding the different layers. They threw a couple different numbers at you, and I was just worried about that cloud base. We need to stay 500 feet below the cloud base to give us enough, margin of error from the ceiling. This is a tricky question. I don't know how to follow up more on this other than we have to stay 500 feet. In this case, they gave us numbers where we were 500 AGL. We were remaining 500 AGL from the ground, and we were remaining 500 feet clear of cloud. If we were even in less favorable conditions than that, we might have to get into a conversation about special VFR. But I don't want to cause confusion between what's on the test and what's not. So let's continue on. We might see a question like that. Uh, 608, we have to go to 609. When the reported ceiling is 1,000 feet overcast and the visibility is 3 miles, to remain VFR, an aircraft cleared to join the circuit must join at 500 below the cloud base. That is the one. Not staying, this would kind of be like as high as possible without entering cloud. That would say like clear of cloud, but the way that that's phrased makes it seem like you're doing something dangerous. In accordance with special VFR would be different. We would have to request special VFR, it would have to be granted, it would have to be at a control zone. 700 AGL, I don't know where 700 comes from, something unrelated to this. So we're gonna go this 500 below the cloud base. We know that to be true. That's 602.114. We can go there. 602.114. 602.114. Let's see. Just go there. 602.114, here it is here. Minimum visual meteorological conditions for VFR flight in controlled airspace. No person shall operate an aircraft in VFR unless blah blah blah. The aircraft is operated with a visual reference to the surface. This is the number one, and I do like to kind of remind people about that. It's like, at the end of the day, you need to be able to see the surface, the ground. Flight visibility is not less than 3 miles. That's why in the question they said 3 miles for controlled airspace, 3 miles. The distance of the aircraft from cloud is not less than 500 feet vertically and 1 mile horizontally. And the aircraft 1 mile, 1 statute mile horizontally. And where the aircraft is operated within a control zone, when reported, ground visibility is not less than 3 miles, and except when taking off or landing, the distance of the aircraft from the surface is not less than 500 feet. So you want to stay 500 feet above ground, other than when you're taking off and landing. In a uncontrolled airspace, let's just see if the airport is uncontrolled. The aircraft is operated with a visual reference to the surface. Where the aircraft is operated at or above 1,000 feet, so above 1,000 feet AGL, during the day, flight visibility not less than 1 mile. During the night, visibility not less than 3 miles, and in either case, the distance of the aircraft from the cloud is not less than 500 feet vertically and 2,000 feet horizontally. So a little bit less horizontally. Remember, it was 1 mile before. When the aircraft is operated less than 1,000 feet, so now we're in the circuit. During the day, flight visibility not less than 2 miles, except if otherwise operated in the air operator certificate. This basically doesn't apply. During the night, flight visibility not less than 3 miles. Night is always 3 miles. In either case, the aircraft is operated clear of cloud. Clear of cloud. Clear of cloud. If we're below 1,000 feet, in Class G airport, untowered, ATF, clear of cloud. I feel like that's an important distinction. I think we're about to see that question. So we just dove down a little bit. That just there was my first rule, which is dive down into something if you don't understand it after doing a question first. Aircraft flying VFR normally join the circuit at 1,000 feet AAE, above aerodrome elevation. This may not always be possible because of the possibility of a straight-in clearance to the airport, in which case the final leg would normally be entered at less than 1,000 feet. Yeah. The existence of a NOTAM which provides that for a different circuit altitude, of course. Weather conditions which may necessitate a circuit height lower than 1,000 feet, certainly. The existence of any of the above circumstances. I think we're just going to move along there. If any of those don't make sense, chat with Bernoulli about them right there. Okay, 611. A pilot on final approach is requested by ATC to reduce speed. The pilot should comply, giving due reduce speed. Comply, giving due consideration of safety minimum maneuvering speed of the aircraft, acknowledge the transmission and execute a 360-degree turn, overshoot and rejoin the circuit, reduce airspeed well below the normal approach speed range. I mean, come on, let's go. This one's crazy, right? Reduce speed well below normal approach speed range? No, you don't do that. If someone asks you to do something that you never do, don't accept that. Overshoot and rejoin the circuit? Certainly not necessary at all. Acknowledge transmission and execute a 360-degree turn. I like this because this is like particularly bad, and I've seen people do this, and it's like wild. So they're asking you to reduce your speed. By acknowledging it, you're saying you're going to do that. So you can either say, no, I can't. I'm already as slow as possible. But if you're saying, okay, I will, reducing speed, and then you do something other than simply reducing speed, like execute a 360-degree turn, you've confirmed that you're going to do something, then you're not doing it, and then you're doing something that you haven't even communicated to them. So this is the trifecta of craziness. And I've seen this a lot. I've seen that a lot. This 360-degree turn. I don't know why it's like so baked into people. I don't even want to like say it out loud too much because you'll hear about it and then do it. But reducing speed means reducing speed. So comply if you can, giving consideration to what was the word they used before? Giving due consideration to the minimum maneuvering speed of the aircraft. So I mean, I wouldn't reduce speed to anything that I would see less than VREF. I mean, of course not. So if you can't do it, it'll just make the circuit bigger with you. ATC might say, okay, we'll just extend the downwind then. Okay, 611. 612 here. Pilot is cleared to land, but is concerned about the high crosswind component. The pilot should, okay, you're concerned about the high crosswind component. That's really good. Where's the question? 612. Is concerned about the high crosswind component. Yeah. That's awesome because the pilot's already aware of they are already ahead of the aircraft because they're thinking about the winds, which is awesome. Let's get it more crosswind than that. Okay, so you're gonna land on this runway here. And the wind is like this. The wind is blowing, right? It's filling in the windsock like this. You're really concerned about that crosswind component. You're looking at the windsock. Maybe you heard the ATIS, and the wind is coming from a direction that you just do not like. This last one is kind of the most dangerous. Continue the approach and land as the clearance must be obeyed. No, man, you can cancel a clearance. Just say, can't do, gotta change up here. That's very easy. Use full flaps and approach at a reduced speed. That's the opposite of what your POH probably says. I mean, land crosswind however your POH says to. In most light training aircraft, the crosswind landing is going to be suggested to use less flaps and higher speed. And that basically, what that does, going into something here, but when you go land with higher speed, the aircraft itself has higher airspeed. And so the relative component of the crosswind is a smaller fraction of the actual airstream going over top of the wings. So if you're imagining a 10 knot crosswind, if you're doing 100 knots, is 10% of the speed. So the kind of vectors of wind coming into the aircraft are the relative airflow of the aircraft, and then the crosswind component. So it's like 10% if you're doing 100 knots. If you're doing 50 knots, if you're going much slower, 10 knot crosswind is 20% now of the relative airflow hitting the wing. So by going faster, the crosswind is affecting the wing less, and the aircraft is going to weather vane less. Same thing with reducing the flaps. Just not reducing the flaps gives less kind of weather vaning and torquing moment from the crosswind. But you do whatever your POH says. It probably won't be this. Alter heading to the land on another runway which is more into the wind. Alter heading on another runway which is more into the wind. Well, you can't do that kind of after you've been cleared. So the option here is to overshoot and request an into wind runway. Hallelujah. Okay, that was green. Bernoulli is going to do a great job, better job than me of explaining. A pilot on a VFR flight is being vectored by ATC towards an extensive unbroken layer of cloud. A pilot on a VFR flight is being vectored by ATC towards an extensive unbroken layer of cloud. The responsibility of remaining VFR rests with who? The radar operator does not necessarily see the weather you do. ATC, since the flight is being designated VFR. ATC, since the cloud is visible on the radar. Not necessarily true. The pilot. It's really going to be that simple when we see those options. A student pilot on a VFR flight has been given a radar vector by ATC. Ahead, at a lower altitude, is a solid overcast cloud condition. The pilot should what? Okay, so you're flying along. You've been given a heading and a radar vector by ATC. We're at 6,000 feet. Over in front of us, we see a lower level of 4,000 feet cloud. We should climb above the cloud and fly VFR over the top. That's a type of rating. That's a type of rating you can get on your license. Over the top means you can go over the top of a broken layer. There's a couple of caveats involved with it. Alter heading as necessary to remain VFR and advise ATC. Maintain heading and altitude as it is the ATC clearance. Maintain heading and altitude because ATC knows of the cloud and will issue further instructions. So when you're VFR, you're going to assume that ATC has no idea about the weather that you're seeing. And when you're VFR, you're just remaining VFR. They'll probably remind you a couple times. Remain VFR. Alter heading as necessary, remain VFR, and advise ATC. This is it here. We don't want to fly VFR over the top. Remember, this is an early license. We're not talking about these kind of advanced ratings. We're just not even going to broach the subject. So we're going to fly VFR and advise ATC. Maintain heading altitude as it is ATC clearance? No. So we're going to advise ATC, remain VFR. What was that first clause of VFR? The very first clause is maintaining contact with the surface of the earth, being able to see the earth. That's the number one clause. Being able to use the horizon as a primary upset aircraft attitude visualization and tool. Okay, finally, we're talking about something called special VFR. An aircraft on a special VFR flight has been cleared for a straight-in approach. Because of low ceilings and poor visibility, the pilot is concerned about the exact location of a radio mast in the vicinity. Avoiding this obstruction is the responsibility of... I won't even read the rest. Okay. They tried to get us with including special VFR, and if you are ahead of the class, that you know that special VFR is a clearance that air traffic control can give you to get into the airport when the visibility is really bad. They're going to give you more hand holding, maybe more headings and more whatever. But that's not going to stop the responsibility being on the pilot here. We can get into that when the time comes, but for now, it's important that we just know it's the responsibility of the pilot. A pilot on a special VFR, this might be. A special has been cleared to the circuit. Ahead at a lower altitude is a solid layer of stratus clouds. Remaining clear of cloud is the responsibility of... Please get this. A pilot on a VFR flight in Class C airspace is advised by ATC to maintain a specific heading. Okay, we're in Charlie airspace, and we have asked to hold a specific heading. In the pilot's opinion, this heading will cause conflict with another aircraft. The pilot should always change altitude as required to avoid other aircraft. Maintain the specified heading to comply with the CARS. Alter heading to avoid the other aircrafts and then advise ATC. Maintain the specified heading as separation will be provided by the controller. Listen, you're in control of the plane. If it's your opinion that you're going to make contact with another aircraft or be in the vicinity of another aircraft that is close to a conflict, we're going to change headings. Remember, if we are approaching head on or thereabouts with some other aircraft, we will alter our heading to the right. So we'll alter our heading to the right or do what we need to do in order to keep the aircraft separated as much as to not cause a conflict, and then very promptly let ATC know, like, wow, that was really close, I just altered heading to the right. ATC will probably be thankful, and they'll probably get you an updated heading immediately. Unless ATC instructs otherwise, pilots operating VFR shall select transponder code 1200 when flying at or below blank feet and a code blank above that altitude. I'll give this one to you here. So 1200 is the VFR code. This is the code that you will squawk basically all the time, except above. Remember how I wrote down, I said, I specifically wrote 1300, or sorry, 13,000, 12,000, 10,000. That was about oxygen. $1,200 for VFR, 12,500, because VFR is the 500s, right? You're gonna fly 500s. That's why this 12,500. 12, 12. So I should have written it above, I guess. 12,500 and below, you're squawking 1,200. It's probably going to be your entire training. You're going to be squawking 1,200. Above 1,200, 12,500, sorry. Above 12,500, you squawk 1,400. This is VFR. Above 12,500. Okay. All the numbers are pretty easy. 1,400. Transponder code 1,200 when flying at or below 12,500. And ASL and code 14 when above that altitude. Really that simple. And that's why I remember these ones like this, so that I don't confuse these. because I did notice that they had written a 500 here in one of the trick answers, which is not what we want. Let's see if Bernoulli says the same sort of thing. 12,500, 1,400. I think his explanation is pretty good. It's very rare to be in that situation because you're probably talking to someone when you're that high. "19. Pilots shall activate the transponder ident feature only when instructed so by ATC." Ident is a way of making your transponder flash on their screen. On a controller's screen. Okay, 620. The holder of a student pilot permit may, for the sole purpose of the holder's own flight training, act as a PIC of an aircraft only when accompanied by a flight instructor. The holder of a student pilot permit may, for the sole purpose of the owner's own flight training, act as PIC of the aircraft only when accompanied by a flight instructor, by day and night, and authorized by a supervising flight instructor, by day only, and authorized by a supervising flight instructor while carrying passengers. This is correct here. Only when authorized by a supervising flight instructor and by day only. Indeed. The PIC of an aircraft shall comply with any light signals or ground markings prescribed in the cars. The PIC of an aircraft shall comply with any light signals or ground markings prescribed in the cars. Only while in Class C airspace if they are part of the ATC clearance. Sorry, I don't understand this question. The PIC of an aircraft shall comply with any light signals or ground markings prescribed in the cars. Light signals like the ones we heard about, I guess, or ground markings like the fur farm. Only while in Class C airspace if they are part of the ATC clearance. No, I guess not true about the fur farm, right? I guess shall comply is pretty strict, and it is about control space. Only while in control zone if they are part of the ATC instruction. At all times provided safety is not jeopardized. I see. This last one is kind of important. Let's talk about the fur farm, for example. Ground markings, meaning the fur farm that we talked about. So there's that fur farm that has the striped roof that I told you about, which do exist. And we're supposed to fly 2,000 feet above this AGL. And there's a 1,000 foot cloud layer. If there's a 1,000 foot cloud layer, you're not going to jeopardize the safety of the flight in order to save possibly a fur farm, fly, inadvertent IMC. Okay. 621, 623, 622. Before setting out on any VFR flight, a pilot is required to read all weather reports received from stations within 100 miles of destination. Wow, that's really good due diligence, but definitely not necessary. You want to be briefed on the weather. Doing weather briefing is an art form and a skill, and there's definitely a method to it. Speaking to a weather briefer or your flight instructor is the first good habit to get into. But 100 nautical miles is not like a rule. That's just not something that we can use on a test like this. File a flight itinerary. That is a rule. Be familiar with all available information appropriate to the flight. That is also a rule. And you'll notice that rule comes up a lot, especially when you're doing like ground briefings and speaking to an examiner. You're expected to be familiar with all available information appropriate to the flight, period. Obtain an ATC clearance. You're certainly not required to do that to fly a VFR flight. Filing a flight itinerary. If we're not flying far enough, that is one thing. There is one omission, but there is never an omission to be familiar with all available information appropriate to the flight. That's purely fact. I almost chose file a flight itinerary. Filing a flight itinerary. You always have to do it, except if the flight is close to home. Remember that 25 nautical mile rule about the safety equipment? The same sort of rule applies to a flight itinerary and when you have to file it. Or not even file it, tell a responsible person. Leave a flight itinerary with a responsible person. 23. I'm glad we got that. It was all about being knowledgeable of all information. NOTAMs, weather, the aircraft maintenance, the aircraft's minimum equipment, the route you're going to fly, the legality of your flight, those types of things. Terminal airspace dimensions and VHF sector frequencies for certain high-density traffic airports in Canada are shown. I'll show you. Here's Ottawa. Terminal airspace dimensions and VHF sector frequencies. Here's the terminal airspace. That's what these lines are here. These blue lines. This is the terminal airspace. And these boxes are what they're referring to. This box here. This box here has a bolded line. It's referring to this space here. This little eye shape here. This box is referring to this shape here. I know, it's a little bit abstruse. Okay. This space here, all of this here. Is being referred to as from this one. So it has the sector frequency. Here's the frequency there, 127.7. And the terminal dimensions. They are all going to be shown on these charts. This chart here is the VTA. The VTA is the close-up chart. The VNC, like this one here, this is the not close-up chart. Let me just get rid of everything. VNC, you'll notice, doesn't have those frequencies. ForeFlight's really nice, where like I zoom in and it automatically switches from the VTA to the VNC. See this? VTA, VNC, VTA, VNC. They are actually two separate chart papers. It'll also say it in the CFS. Certainly it will say it in the CFS. So it's in the CFS and the VTA. It's not necessarily on the VNC, and it's not necessarily in VNC. And DA has great, but it won't have the frequencies. Okay, we've finished section 6. This is great. So the next question is, I believe, 7. Wake turbulence. Okay, I'm gonna cut it there and finish the study sesh. I've been studying for a little over 4 hours. And we yeah, cutting sections up. So I gave you my 3 rules, and I set across all of these questions to use the 3 rules. It is to begin with the questions. Don't begin with the textbook. Begin with the questions and understand where your gaps are. That's number 1. Number 2 is to use a pen and paper to kind of move through the logic of the questions and draw diagrams where necessary. But do it with very low pressure so that you can not worry about the notes being perfect. I actually don't keep a notebook, very clean notebook. Some people have like calligraphy and they, have colors and the whole thing. If it helps them with their mind palace about how to remember things, then I think that's great. However, I find it very freeing to not have notes that have any sort of pressure on them to satisfy a level. So don't dive into questions until you've gotten them wrong and now have a space for them in your mind. Number 2, keep kind of your notepad. Number 3, choosing answers that are safe. I broke that rule a couple of times. I chose an answer that had language that I had seen before and, acted on that rather than thinking what was a safe answer. Actually, that was number 4, because number 3 was read the question. I did have a wrong answer where with the estimated time, it said it does not have an estimated time for the NOTAM, and I thought, oh, there's no time on the NOTAM, so it's when the canceling NOTAM comes. But it actually does have a time, it just doesn't have the EST, so it ends exactly at the time. Point being that I didn't read that question carefully. So yeah, reading the question carefully. So those are my 4 notes. This study sesh is long. The PSTAR and studying for exams in aviation is long. It's a never-ending process. I have a decade in aviation, and I still study, and I still like to study. And I think that kind of positive approach comes from having good study. What's the word for it? Good study hygiene. Being able to study without it being a lot of pressure, without it being overwhelming, with it being exciting. I have obviously designed Fly with AI and Bernoulli to help with those sorts of ways of looking at it. Using this website, getting questions wrong, and then talking to Bernoulli about those things, and then also doing your own due diligence of finding the reference, it's kind of the goated way of studying. So I'm going to call it here. I'll do a part 2 if this is popular, but all of that is there for you. Go from where we've just left off and then finish this off and get perfect score on your PSTAR. Absolutely no reason not to be able to. Your score will kind of tally up as you go. When you start off, it'll say 0. So you'll know when Bernoulli predicts that you'll probably get about 100% on your exam. Okay, there's the PSTAR. Other things on this website are the private pilot exam, which are the Canadian version and the FAA version. The FAA version just uses FAA questions, and I plan to kind of build this classroom out even more. So please take this as an amazing resource, and you got it. I'll do more videos in the future. Okay, thank you. I'm editing, and I just realized my outro is weak, and I'm just buffering this. I'm a new YouTuber, so I don't really know how this stuff works, but please like and follow. Tell me if these videos are helpful. Answer the second half of the PSTAR questions on the website, and drop your messages here if any of them are not clear to you. Talk to Bernoulli obviously about it, but you can drop your answers here. Good luck. You got this. The PSTAR is quite easy in the realm of exams that you're going to do. So I hope you do well. If you use this study guide on this website and you can get Bernoulli to tell you that your predicted score is 100, I guarantee literally that you will be fine on the PSTAR. I actually guarantee it. Okay? Enjoy. Thank you. Bye.